And welcome into the Monday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning. Some of us in Nashville, Tennessee, some of us in New York. We've got a lot to get to today here on the program. Obviously, we're going to spend a lot of time on the Titans and that disaster yesterday against the Jets, a gigantic win for the Tennessee Vols. Vanderbilt, a last-second win as well, and a little Brady versus Belichick action last night. I'm trying purposely to avoid talking about the University of Kentucky because Michelle's shirt is very loud and proud Kentucky today, but busy weekend in the world of sports. Joe Rexrode, how are we doing live from New York City?
Go Cats.
That's right.
Doing okay, and I'm going to be loud. Now, there's a big difference between starting a show at 7 a.m. local and 4 a.m. local.
That's right.
So today I'm not going to be talking on the seventh green as we approach, and that's slightly in the rough. No more of that. And it's a good day to probably be loud because, boy, that was bad. That was bad yesterday by the Titans.
That was really, really bad. We'll get to a little bit more of that coming up in a second. Although I do have a question to start you off with here, Joe Rexrode. Better weekend, Tom Brady going back to New England and getting a win, or Urban Meyer partying it up out there with the videos coming out? Who had the better weekend?
Well, first of all, those Urban Meyer videos are from years ago. That's total bunk.
That really ruins my.
He had like his Ohio State stuff on, and those have been debunked. Unfortunately,
that really ruins
great
everything.
To think. But Brady had a good night for Brady. You know, the thing is, I mean, I'm sure Brady wanted to go in there and just just unload on them, and really didn't. And actually, like his replacement, like it was a great night for like Pats fans to be like, you know what, Tom, we're good. We're gonna be okay. Also, incredible that Bill Belichick in this matchup, it ends on a stupid coaching decision. Like, what are you doing?
56-yard field goal in the driving rain to try to get a win when it's 4th and 3.
I mean, on 3rd and 3, Mac Jones made the exact correct read, had the ball going to the right place, and it would have put them in a great spot. And a great play. I don't even know who did it. Who did it for the Bucs. Tipped it at the line. Okay, fine. So you got 4th and 3. Your rookie quarterback has barely thrown an incompletion all night. He has been on time with the ball. He has handled everything the Bucs have thrown at him. I was blown away by Mac Jones last night. And you kick a 56-yarder? And by the way, even if you make it, Tom Brady gets like 50 seconds. So you're toast anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, just ridiculous. Like all this build up, and then let's end on Belichick just completely just soiling his diaper. It's just ridiculous.
It was really bad. I will say it was a pretty good kick given the circumstances.
Yeah, no, it was.
And it goes right off the uprights. And as Brady said after the game, sometimes it goes off the uprights and in, and sometimes you're a little bit wide. But all in all, I thought the game itself was better than I thought from a competitive standpoint. Not much offensive football to really go around last night between the Bucs and the Patriots. But Tom Brady goes back to New England. They get it done, and Tampa Bay improves to 3-1. So speaking of teams that did not get it done yesterday, the Titans, and we've got a lot to get to on that front today. A 27-24 loss in overtime to the hapless New York Jets. Joe, again, we've got a lot to get to with this game, and we'll take your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, all show long. I guess my first question is, watching that in person, your initial reaction to what we saw from the Titans yesterday, how in the world did they let this happen against that football team in the New York Jets?
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, it's two things that really failed and are really disappointing. Like in parts of that game, like seriously, like a higher level college team trying to, or a lower level college team trying to block a higher level college team. You know what I mean? Like it was not, I mean, they were getting, and yes, certainly Robert Saleh loves to blitz, and they sent people and they had some really good effective pressures. but there were also a lot of times where it was simple, like especially I think both tackles just really losing quickly on the outside. So that was a big disappointment. And then the defense, I mean, ultimately, like, you can't let them off the hook like that. You can't give up big plays like that. It was very disappointing from that perspective. If you are going to succumb to that team, to that offensive line, to that collection of skill, rookie quarterback, boy, it doesn't bode well. I thought the defense has really demonstrated some good things, but hugely disappointing, to come out, let them have that tying drive, obviously the big play to Davis, and then in overtime. I mean, hey, I'd give Danico Autry credit. I mean, a lot of guys stepped up and made plays too,
Sure.
but bad performance. And then as far as the game situation, I mean, you go back to the beginning. The Jets were a team that came out absolutely intending to be dominated. Like they didn't have energy. They didn't have confidence. They were exactly what you thought they were. They were getting booed by the fans. They stunk on offense. It was total. So it was 105-15 in total yards on like the first three possessions for each team. And if the Titans just do what they're used to doing, which is executing the red zone, at least the last 2 years, then I don't think it gets interesting. But they screwed it up, and they had 3 field goals, and then eventually that team got life.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was, the game stretches out into overtime. So you're talking 3:30, 3:45 before that one gets done, Central Time yesterday. That was a 4-hour period that we'll never get back. Like, that was one of the worst professional football games I've ever watched in my entire life. It was brutal to watch yesterday. Not just from, the way the Titans kind of fell apart at the end. It was just really horrendous football for a lot of the time yesterday. And that's got to be one where, as that game continues to go on, and we saw it on social media, Titans fans are like, here we go again. Like, how do you keep finding yourself in this situation? And look, Joe, I didn't expect the offense to go in there yesterday and just totally light it up. We talked about it last week. The Jets have a good defensive front. We knew what the Titans were getting into with that defensive front. And when you don't have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, I said this yesterday on Twitter, like, I think anybody who thought the Titans offense was just going to go in there and light it up yesterday without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones probably wasn't living in reality. But to your point, I mean, there were just so many simple mistakes that they made yesterday on both sides of the ball. And one of those ones, I mean, it's overtime. It's 3rd and 5, and you get a delay a game penalty. Like, how does that happen in overtime? It's just simple things like that just leave you scratching your head yesterday. And, I didn't think at first it was really going to matter in the first half because, like you said, the Jets just looked so hapless coming out. I mean, they weren't getting anything done offensively. The Titans defense was playing really well. They were forcing stops quickly, and the Titans were moving the ball on the offensive side. But you get down to the red zone, you're not able to finish on some of these drives, and you end up with only 9 points, 3 field goals made in the first half. Anytime you let a team like that hang around, you're playing with fire, and we saw Zach Wilson's arm be able to extend some plays yesterday and make some big throws down the field, and it's a horrendous loss for this Titans team. I mean, I don't really know how to overstate how bad of a loss this is for the Titans.
Yeah, it is. And you got to separate the two things. The injuries, absolutely, of course, are a factor, right? I mean, they're bad. It's amazing, the injury situation for this team. To be a month into the season and be this banged up is pretty remarkable. And obviously that's going to have an effect, but like there's no excuse to lose this game, even with that. Yes, of course. I mean, they're not the same without those 2 receivers. Of course not. But that's the thing. Again, I thought that they had a nice mix early offensively. They moved the ball with ease. They had a good plan, and they were, doing what they intended to do, just not finishing the red zone. And then I would say that I would agree. Like by the 3rd quarter of that game, I was like, this is just an all-time, just awful game. Just an all-time awful game. And at least he got interesting late, I guess. Like both teams made some plays, but it was bad. The injuries, the problem with the injuries, of course, is what it means for the future, what it means spinning forward. I mean, you have to overcome them, win this game, because you know what's coming. And now you go to Jacksonville, and who the heck knows what's going to happen in Jacksonville. But even to just be 3-2 entering that quartet of games, which again, for people who don't know, Bills, Chiefs, Colts, Rams in order, 2 on the road, 2 at home, 2 on the road. If you're even just 3-2 entering that is rough. And hey, 2-3 is on the table.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Kelton texting in, would you guys rather have had the tie or straight-up loss? I know that we all hate ties, and I was actually thinking about that yesterday, Joe, like how much I despise ties in the NFL, but when it got down to the end of it yesterday, I was thinking if you're the Titans, you're going to thank your lucky stars and take a tie and get out of here, and they just weren't able to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It could be a tiebreaker in your favor. So, but yes, it would have been actually very fitting for that game to end in a tie.
It would have.
Although it was very fitting for a Titans kicker to badly hook and miss a huge field goal, and to remind us again of the kicker carousel that this team's been on, along with so many other themes that were kind of running around there yesterday at the GM and coach level.
A lot of themes yesterday for sure. And Joe, I said it on Friday, my favorite uniform combo for the Titans is that navy blue top and the white pants. And they might have to launch that combo into the sun, man. I mean, the last 2 times that they've worn those were yesterday and the Cincinnati game a year ago. Maybe time to hang those up. As much as I like how it looks, if you're going to play like that in that combo, and I'm kind of half joking here, but not good stuff the last couple of times they've worn that combo.
Yep, that's not those are not the britches. Those are not the britches. I don't like those uniforms anyway, so I think they should ditch them. So,
well, I don't think you're going to have a hard time convincing anyone after the way they played the last 2 times in those. We're off and running today here on the Titans and the Jets. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. When we come back, how did Mike Vrabel and this coaching staff allow this to go down yesterday? We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. That was Titans head coach Mike Vrabel yesterday after a 27-24 overtime loss for the Titans against the Jets. That one hurts yesterday. If you're a Titans fan, we're taking your thoughts on our text line and our phone line all show long. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Speaking of, let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line and welcome in our good friend Kinston from Memphis. Kinston, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
Man, I'm not doing good, man. You know, I wanted one of my parlays went bad because of this game, but it's I finally understand why we don't get any national hype. Joe, you were talking about how your friends at the Athletic don't respect the Titans, and it's like every year we have one of these games, and you know I'm kind of over it. But then I look at it. I told you I was gonna call in and talk about Jeffrey Simmons, and so many fans love him and fall in love with the hype of what he could be, but I'm watching that game, and I'm waiting on him to make a play. You know, I've been a fan of this team for over 20 years. When Haynesworth was here, when Jarrell Casey was in his prime, dominant defensive tackles. And I'm like, where is this Pro Bowl defensive tackle game changer that could help us make a difference? Where is he at? And I know he had 4 tackles, but they didn't call his name at all last game. They didn't hardly call his name against the Colts. He's a great run defender, but he hasn't played up to his potential. So I'm really frustrated with him. That defense had no business giving up 27 points. They shouldn't have scored more than 17 against us. But, you know, it's a bit of the same. You know, I don't want to hear any more about any training camp battles with wide receivers because those guys sucked. The O-line sucked. I don't know what the prospects of this team's going to be going forward. So, I mean, I'm not trying to overreact. I think we're going to be a playoff team and win the division. But, you know, I don't know if we're going to be a Super Bowl contender because we can't even beat the freaking Jets. So, thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks for the call, Kinston. We appreciate it. And, you know, Kinston, obviously a very passionate Titans fan and interacts with us a lot on social media. And he's been beating this drum for a couple of weeks about Jeffrey Simmons. And look, there were a lot of problems yesterday, and Jeffrey Simmons is down the list in terms of the problems for the Titans yesterday. But to Kinston's point, and we've talked about this several times, Joe, I think everybody recognizes that Jeffrey Simmons is a good player. We're waiting on Jeffrey Simmons to take the next step and become a great player. And I've not seen that so far this year.
Yeah, look, the fact that he's doubled constantly has to be mentioned because
Sure.
he is. Now, there are people in the league who are doubled a lot, you know, and some make more plays than him. So I would agree. I mean, look, I guess I look at that game and I'm like, I would not even think to go to Jeffrey Simmons, you know, personally. Like, I still think he was a presence and a factor. Agree that, you know, as a pass rusher, you want to see more. You want to see some of, you know, what Casey gave you for a lot of years.
Sure.
You know, from the interior. So I don't disagree. I guess I just wouldn't even have thought to go to Jeffrey Simmons today, you know, if Kinston didn't take it there. You can look at it though and say, well, someone on this defense has to compensate for some of the shortcomings. Like Harold Landry, again, continues to me to be really good this year. Danico Autry, that play in overtime, but at other times, I mean, I think he's been a nice pickup. He's been a factor. I still think Simmons has been a plus player. But, yeah, I guess not enough of one. You need more from him. You know, and even yesterday, I mean, Christian Fulton with the pick early, but then, you know, got beat in a couple of key moments, you know, late by Crowder too. So just overall, very disappointing for that defense to have some of the issues it had, you know, like late. So it was overtime. It looked like they didn't get a call in, or Jenkins didn't get the call. He was kind of signaling before a snap. I think it was 3rd and 2. Something like it looked like he was like, you know, what's the call? And it ends up, of course, that he was supposed to be covering Cole, and it's a 29-yard, you know, deep sideline pass from Zach Wilson to Cole. That's a huge play, you know, where the Titans could have forced a punt in overtime and didn't. So, like, just a bunch of stuff like that. The delay, like you said, and the delay of game, and, you know, the snap over the head of, you know, when you have Brewer in the game, you have 3rd and 1, it's a shotgun snap. I actually asked Vrabel about that yesterday, and Vrabel said that they thought they had a first down based on the spot. So Henry had actually tapped out, so that is not on the coaches. with Henry not being there, but you have a 3rd and 1, you have no Derrick Henry, and you have a new center who is shotgun snapping, and of course, we saw what happened over his head. That they have to settle for a field goal. That drive was destined to be a touchdown. So there's just a lot of stuff going on there. Like, you thought it was a first down, so I guess, I don't know, why not pop a timeout? Get Derrick Henry back on the field, line up under center, get the first down once you realize it's 3rd and 1. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff yesterday that got screwed up.
Yep, and to that point, when you start talking about as many things that got screwed up as they did yesterday for the Titans, you naturally go back to coaching. And, our buddy Ben Arthur from the Tennessean came out with his grades yesterday from the game. He gave the coaching an F. And, obviously factoring in Bowen and Mike Vrabel and Todd Downing. And, look, I know the 2 games the Titans have lost this year have been just brutal performances by the offensive line. So there's that factors into it. But Todd Downing, he's got to have something to do with that. Like, when you realize that your offensive line is just getting blown up the way that it was, you've got to figure out how to compensate for that if you're an offensive coordinator. And yet again yesterday, I looked at some of those play calls, particularly on first down, and I was just like, what are they doing out there, man? It was, I thought, a really poorly coached game yesterday. I know it's easy to go there when you lose a game like that to the Jets, but to your point, just so many simple things that were either messed up yesterday or looked discombobulated. The Titans just looked all out of sorts yesterday, and sometimes that happens in the NFL. We get that, and you talked about that Friday. There's going to be some weeks where the Titans look bad as they move forward here. You got to find a way to overcome that, but not a very well coached game yesterday for the Titans.
Well, of course not. Of course not. First of all, absolutely not. It's funny because if we were ranking Vrabel, Downing, and Bowen, I might still say Downing had the best day of the 3. Obviously, you're the head coach. It's on you. You lose a game like this. So,
sure.
Vrabel is a different category, I guess. But I just, I thought they did have some things that worked well. They had this little throwback screen to McNichols with Ben Jones kicking out that they went to. Well, they ended up going to it one too many times is what happened, because the Jets finally recognized it and just blew it up in overtime, to put them behind the sticks. But it had worked a lot. There was a lot of little stuff to McNichols that was working. And I thought, sometimes it's like, look, it's you're getting 3rd and long, and what are you going to do? You have to drop back and pass. I agree, though, in general, like maybe move the pocket, do something different at some point once they're pushing toward double digits and sacks. On the text line, let's see if I can find this. I'm not always great at this. But on the text line, someone was asking about Downing and the usage of Derrick Henry. And that's another funny thing, It's like Derrick Henry, I'm not in favor of him being off the field on any play.
Right.
But he did have 33 carries. He had 33 carries for 157 yards. He also did, what did he do in a receiving game? He had a couple catches for 20 yards. They used him, I agree, like, have him on the field all the time, but we sometimes we talk about workload, and then it's like, well, how the heck did he only get the ball 33 times? The bottom line is, it's just, a day like that, you got to lean on your best player. But man, it's like, where are things going if they can't protect a quarterback?
Yeah, it's a rough situation, and yet again, a couple of those hits that Ryan Tannehill took yesterday leave you holding your breath if you're a Titans fan. A couple of unblocked guys coming in and just absolutely unloading on your quarterback. We'll get a little bit more to the offensive line coming up here in just a second. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Got a texter that says, do we have a Jonathan Joseph situation going on with Janoris Jenkins? That man can't cover a bed. That's on the text line. Not a great day for Jenkins yesterday.
No, but I don't.
It's not
think
Jonathan
so.
Joseph.
Yeah, it's not that. But again, like that play, the play I'm talking about with Cole on the sideline, he was late to figure out what he was supposed to do. So that's on them as a collective. But what's really interesting to me with the corners is, so yesterday Christian Fulton is the slot corner.
Yeah.
And Breon Borders is the other outside corner. Now, obviously, we know maybe that wouldn't be the case. Maybe it still would. But if Caleb Farley were available, he's one of 87 guys who are injured right now. But like Elijah Molden, now I understand he had a couple real bad moments in that Seattle game. But all of a sudden, like he's just a total non-factor. Like
you just can't get on the field anymore. Yeah,
right. You don't even consider him, and so it's Borders on the outside. And then of course the Jets took advantage of that with the Corey Davis touchdown. Just beat Borders. Corey Davis looked pretty good, by the way, yesterday. He looked like a pretty good football player.
He did. Blocked well, ran routes well. Good stuff from Corey Davis.
I mean, 111 yards receiving, plus you tack on that 43-yard huge penalty, which again was another. I mean, it's one of those things. Like it's a bad mistake because you had a chance to play the ball, and Crookshank just hit him early.
Yeah,
a little bit panicky, But it's also, it's a guy I didn't think was going to make the team who's starting at safety, and that's where they are too. Not an excuse. But there are some incredible situations for this team. And yesterday, of course, punter also.
Yeah.
Number 3 outside linebacker, Sheree Finch. You got new guys at D-line, and it's really amazing. I can't recall a team in the first couple days of October being this ravaged by injuries.
We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans when we come back on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe, hang with us on the phone line. We'll get to you on the other side. The final game of NFL Week 4 is tonight, and FanDuel Sportsbook wants you to get the most out of every play. That's why they're giving everyone a $10 risk-free bet every single week, and all you got to do is bet a same-game parlay bet with 3 legs or more, and if your bet doesn't win, FanDuel will pay you back up to $10. The Chargers and the Raiders tonight. Raiders still undefeated. I like the Chargers in this game, though. I like the way Justin Herbert and company have been preparing. Give me the over on Herbert's passing yards, but you take it any way you want to take it. Offers like this are one of the many reasons I love betting with FanDuel Sportsbook. It's America's #1 sportsbook. It's safe and secure, easy to use, and you get your money quickly in as little as 24 hours. So if you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, sign up today with promo code ROB to also receive a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Once again, that promo code is ROB. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. Refund issued is non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. A max refund of $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same game parlay available for multiple sports in all states on mobile and web. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. That was Titans head coach Mike Vrabel after the game yesterday, addressing the health of the team. As Joe Rexrode mentioned, pretty concerning moving forward where this Titans team is from an injury standpoint. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank, conveniently serving Middle Tennessee with 13 locations. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Talking Titans, taking your thoughts on our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line and welcome in Joe from Nashville who wants to weigh in. Joe, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Good morning, gentlemen. Big Titans fan, bad day yesterday. I just want to come back on some of the comments that Joe made there a few minutes ago about Derrick Henry and, some of the questionable things about taking him out sometimes.
Okay.
If you go back to the first three drives where they ended up in field goals, the first one, the one I had a real problem with, we're on the 11-yard line. It's 3rd and 1. You take Henry out. McNichols, by the way, McNichols had his best game, I think, yesterday as the Titan. For full disclosure. Now, the second time, we're 3rd and 6. I can see that. I didn't have as much issue with taking Derrick Henry out at that time, even though we're still in the red zone. And I would think that the Jets would much more have to deal with Jeremy McNichols on 3rd and 6 than they would have had to deal with Derrick Henry. But now, the third time, after we failed twice, and we've been in the red zone, and it's 3rd and 2, and you take this guy out again, and at this time he hadn't had those 30-plus touches that Joe was talking about earlier, I don't understand the meaning behind it. I mean, you've got some great players on this team, but arguably you've got one guy right now that is, one of the best in the league. I mean, you don't see these other teams taking out their best players, their best chance to win when you're in a scoring position, and Tennessee Titans have consistently done this in the last 2 to 3 years with Derrick. And, the guy goes out. He's the leading receiver of the team at the time. I know he's not going to burn up, the scoreboard most time catch a pass. But, just having him on the field and having to deal with him, just to defend with him, I think would have been much more better served for the Titans and gave them a much better opportunity to score. Somebody needs to talk to this OC or in Vrabel and say, hey, man, the guy's catching everything, that you're pretty much throwing at him. And even if he doesn't, even if you're not going to go to him, if you're going to go a different direction, having him on the field is a much more matchup, nightmare for, say, some of the guys for the Jets than it would have been for Jeremy McNichols. I'll hang up and I'll listen to your thoughts.
Hey, thanks for the call, Joe. We appreciate it. And yeah, look, I get it. It's you want Derrick Henry on the field as much as possible. And, Joe, there was a lot of that, of what Joe just threw out there on social media yesterday. Now, I will say, if you watch the game and you go back and look at it, there was at least a couple of times where they caught it on the broadcast where you can see Derrick Henry tapping the top of his head and taking himself out. So
yes.
Some of these situations, do the Titans take him out? Yes. Now, I think a couple of times yesterday what happened was Henry was gassed and he took himself out.
That is definitely the case. Well, I believe on the third one, remember, so I'm trying to go through all the so if you go the second possession, you got Henry with 16 yards, Henry gets a yard, then you get a little swing pass to Henry for 16 more yards, Henry gets 7, Henry gets 2, taps out. So, he'd done a lot of work. So again, that's a tap out when the Titans think that they have a first down. They didn't. It was 3rd and 1. I guess right at that moment, okay, so wait, it's 3rd and 1. Okay, Derrick has tapped out here. Brewer's out there. It's going to be a shot. I mean, it's one of those, it's easy to go back, easy to second guess. But man, pop a timeout right there. Get what you want. Get the first down. That was obviously a disastrous loss of a great chance at a touchdown to lose 17 yards. And then Joe is talking about the fourth possession. Actually, I believe is what he's referring to, which was Henry gets 3, Henry gets 5, 3rd and 2. I agree. 3rd and 2. Henry should be on the field. Now, the bigger picture of what Joe is talking about there, it's a tough one. I mean, Arthur Smith did the same thing.
Yeah.
So let's not just put it on Todd Downing. The actual role of someone else who is a third down back who's a little bit quicker, a little bit better with some of the choice routes and stuff. And look, McNichols was really good yesterday. McNichols has been very effective. A lot of these teams are dropping their coverages and there's room for him to run. He's making plays. I do tend to agree, though, that there's certain times, and I mean, I think every game there's some times in the press box I'm like, see, right now, I'd want 22 out there so they know he's out there, whatever you're going to do. And then, of course, we always talk about his workload. So, I mean, there's a lot of things kind of pushing against each other here. But in general, I'd agree. Like 3rd and 2, Derrick Henry should never not be on the field. 3rd and 1, obviously. Okay, that 3rd and 1 was jacked up, which is still on the Titans, but it was jacked up. It was not an intentional. 3rd and 1, let's put him at Nichols. But even 3rd and 2, like 3rd and 3 or less, I think you got to have Derrick Henry on the field. I understand 3rd and medium. I think. Look, I mean, I'm not against Derrick Henry on the field at all times, always having the ball, throwing it, catching it, punting it. The 3rd and 2 that they botched, by the way, was an offensive pass interference by Ferkser, and he definitely did not execute the rub very well. It was basically just a block in the open field. And then new punter Johnny Townsend gets a 12-yard punt off.
Just right smoked it, so, yeah.
Yeah, so that like that right around there, it's 9-7 because, of course, the Jets had come down to score. Corey Davis beat Christian Fulton for a big play. He beat Jenkins on 3rd and 10. So the Jets had momentum, and then you respond with that, taking Henry out on 3rd down, OPI, a nice 12-yard punt.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Matt from Memphis, who wants to weigh in. Matt, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Good.
I got to share a couple thoughts with you guys real quick. I want to start off by saying it's very easy for all of us fans to comment on Todd Downing and stuff from our homes or wherever we're at, but I do have to say he is an idiot. I mean, on 3rd and 2, Henry should be in there, and why is he asking to get out of the game? Because you're running him every freaking 2 plays, every rush. Every 1st and 2nd down, Henry's running the ball, and then you pass him, and you try to get out of it. They've got to switch it up. I mean, this is a team that can go deep into the playoffs. I don't know about a Super Bowl team now, but it can make a run to the AFC Championship. But when you're doing run, pass, it's pretty easy. And Derrick Henry's on pace to run for 590 attempts. I mean, it's ridiculous how much they're using him. I get it. He's a workhorse, and he can handle it. But he's tired. We need to win these games. That was an easy game. Our schedule's only going to get harder from here.
Hey, thanks for the call, Matt. We appreciate it. I mean, look, to Matt's point, it is going back to the play calling on 1st down. There's a whole lot of turning it around and handing it off to Derrick Henry on first down, and there is. And, look, I get it to some degree, and especially as that game goes on yesterday. Like, I guess you're wondering if you're Todd Downing. Like, if I'm dropping Ryan Tannehill back on a 7-step drop on 1st down, is he going to get killed because of the way that offensive line was blocking yesterday? But, yeah, I mean, the usage level of Derrick Henry, look, I'm not surprised Derrick Henry got 33 carries yesterday. I mean, when you don't have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, we knew this was going to happen heading into this game. Derrick Henry was going to get used a lot. It would be nice to have him in on those 3rd down situations where not only can he be a weapon in a running game and a threat that defense has to be prepared for, but we've seen it. He can be a threat in the passing game this year too. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to that moving forward, because you need to have Derrick Henry on the field.
Yeah, and in general, I agree on the 1st downs, but actually, I mean, I thought yesterday early it really wasn't that way. Their first down was not a run to Henry. Their second 1st down was a play action pass. Tannehill was sacked. Quessenberry got beat, and he got sacked. Then their next 3rd down, they had a fade to Josh Reynolds. He could have possibly caught it for a touchdown, didn't catch it. Then they go Wildcat, Derrick Henry for 2. Then you get 3rd and 8. Then you get a free blitzer and a sack. I mean, look, some of the answer here, well, I know we're going to talk about this. Probably the obvious one thing that will help you is, of course, getting your receivers back. It's much different when you have guys who don't scare a secondary, who don't win easily against corners, and who don't give you these quick options as a quarterback. Let's be honest. I mean, I asked very well yesterday, like, were there times when Tannehill, held the ball too long? Because I thought it certainly looked that way to me. I think there were a few times he has to just get rid of it and not take the sack. Vrabel's like, well, I have to look at the film, see if anybody was open, which was kind of, a little bit of an answer like, yeah, it's a little different out there at receiver without 11 and 2. But then the other answer is just the offensive linemen who have been good at blocking, finding a way to be good at blocking again, because right now they're not.
They're not, and it was brutal in the pass blocking game yesterday once again for the Titans. And that leaves me asking this question. Is this going to be what this offensive line is in pass protection all year long? And if so, is there any way the Titans can overcome that? We'll get to more of that coming up next. Got some tickets to give away coming up next as well. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Maybe the Titans need to call Sandra Bullock, get in there to the offensive line and make a speech. Protect the blind side of Ryan Tannehill.
Michael Orr.
Or Michael Orr. Maybe call Michael Orr as well. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube today and every day. Our video streaming brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Volunteer State Bank, now with 2 locations in Murfreesboro. Visit their brand new Murfreesboro location at 2019 Memorial Boulevard. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. We've got some tickets to give away to see the Nashville Predators take on the Carolina Hurricanes at Bridgestone Arena coming up this Saturday, October the 9th. Be caller number 5, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller number 5 will win a 4-pack of tickets to see the Predators take on the Hurricanes coming up on Saturday at Bridgestone Arena. Joe Rexrode, it was a disaster in the passing game as far as protection is concerned yesterday for the Titans. Ryan Tannehill sacked 7 times yesterday by the Jets, and that kind of had flashbacks to the Chandler Jones game in Week 1. A couple of weeks this year where it has been brutal to watch from a pass protection standpoint, and really in every game so far, there have been some shots that Ryan Tannehill has taken in the pocket. I guess my question now, Joe Rexrode, is how concerned are we is that this is just what this Titans offensive line is at this point in pass protection, and this is what Ryan Tannehill is going to have to find a way to deal with throughout the season? Have we reached that point yet with this line, given how bad it's been in a couple of these games through 4 games, or do you still have hope that this can be an offensive line that at some point can figure out how to protect this quarterback?
Well, if it's not going to change and get better, they're not going to go to the playoffs.
No,
they're not going to win the division. I mean, seriously, like if they don't get better and get close to what they used to be. Let's remember, okay, so they've given up 17 sacks this year. They gave up 25 last year in 16 games. And that was last year largely without Taylor Lewan. When they had Taylor Lewan, I would argue that the second half of 19, the playoff run of 19, and the first part of last year when they had Lewan, there's no way there were more than like 2-3 offensive lines better than them in the league. Okay? Now, yes, Jack Conklin was part of that early. Dennis Kelly was part of that last year. But there's still a lot of guys who are on that line right now who were part of that, of course. And I think some of it is injury. Some people don't want to hear that. But Roger Saffold has been, I mean, he has 4 or 5 plays a game where he is not sure he wants to get up again because of the shoulder.
Yep.
He's been missing practice. Ben Jones has a knee. Ben Jones is banged up. And this is where you look at these guys and say, okay, you also need to think of the future. Like at some point you just get old and too beat up and then you can't be effective. If that's what they are, they're going to have a real problem this year. They are so dependent on those guys. Nate Davis, I thought, had some real rough moments yesterday too. He hasn't been as good as they need Nate Davis to be this year. Do I think that he's doomed to continue that? No, I can't imagine. I got to think that he's going to figure everything out and get in, whatever he needs to do. And everyone's dealing with something, but he can be better than that. Questenberry, we've talked about it. I thought he was good, really good at times in the first 3 games. Yesterday, he got beat a lot, just flat out. Now,
he's bad.
They also blitz to his side sometimes when, he's got 2 guys to worry about, and he's trying to pick up the corner of the linebacker blitz on the outside, and then, the guy he was going to block comes on the inside. I mean, there were times when he was overwhelmed, and they didn't handle the pressures well as an entire offense. But there are also times where he just got beat. And then Lewan was bad yesterday.
Yep.
And that's it comes down, a lot of it comes down to Lewan. What is Lewan now as a player? What is he going to be as a player? How far is he from rediscovering his game? Will he? How much is the injury affecting him? Of course, yesterday on the same leg as the ACL, he was down. And at first I thought it was the knee again, but it was, I guess, the ankle. So he's got that foot wrapped. He comes back in the game. Ben Jones is down early in the game for a while. I was like, is this a neck thing? Turns out it's a shoulder thing. So add that to his list of problems along with the knee. So will they get healthy? If that's not the case, they're not going to get better. Will they get better even if they do get healthy? I don't know. But if not, I mean, the Titans are in serious trouble, man. Like this is supposed to be one of the best parts of the team. And right now, I think you could absolutely say it's the worst part of the team.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're at some point, if this continues, Ryan Tannehill is not going to be the starting quarterback. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, Ryan Tannehill is just getting absolutely destroyed out there at times. And look, Tannehill's a tough guy. He's a big guy. We know he can take hits, and we know that he's not afraid. But at some point, if you're under the amount of pressure that he's been under so far this year, that's going to affect you. Hopefully not physically, but it's certainly going to affect you mentally as well. And, you know, Tannehill largely has had a good pocket to throw from since he's been here as a quarterback with the Titans, and that's been a large degree of why he's been as successful as he has been. If this is going to be what the line is, I don't know how you overcome that if you're this offense. I mean, there's a lot of fancy things we talk about and these different play calls you can have. And, you know, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, certainly you missed those two yesterday. But a lot of this game still is, can you block and can you tackle? I mean, that's what a lot of this game boils down to. And right now, from a pass blocking standpoint, it's not going well. Now, the interesting thing is, Joe, and we saw this a couple of times as the game went on yesterday, run blocking wise, they still at times have their moments where they're dominant on the offensive line. I mean, there was a drive at the end of the third quarter heading into the fourth yesterday where Derrick Henry was gashing the Jets, and you know some of the holes that the line was creating out there. You're like, man, you can drive a truck through that hole. So it's not like every part of their game has just been awful, but pass blocking wise, it's been a pretty rough go of it so far, and it was pretty brutal to watch at times yesterday. Now, to your point that you made earlier in the show, I also did think there were a few plays and a few sacks where Tannehill was holding on to the ball a long time, and I wonder how much of that is Tannehill looking for the perfect play and how much of that is nobody's wide open going down the field without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones.
Yeah, there's just some times, and there's some times where, I mean, he always wants to make a play, but there's some times where it's like, yeah, just go ahead and it's not there instantly. You got that clock's got to speed up in your head a little bit. Just get rid of it. And at least it's like, you know, it's a shorter field goal or it's 3rd and 7 instead of 3rd and 14, you know, whatever it is. Like there's some times when he has to do that. But I think a lot of it is the receiver situation too. I mean, it just changes how a defense approaches you if you have threats like that on the outside. Of course it does. They were not worried about sending anybody at Tannehill yesterday. Other teams, if 11 and 2 are on the field, they are not going to be doing that, and they will pay if they do. But in the meantime, again, you can have Derrick Henry, you can be a great run blocking line, and you're still going to be in 3rd and 7. You're still going to be in 3rd and 8. You're still going to be in obvious passing situations where your quarterback has to drop back, and you have to give him some kind of a pocket and a few seconds to try to make a play. And, hey, the Jets are good there. That's the best part of their team. They've got some good players. I mean, Quinnen Williams was a real problem for the Titans yesterday. Some of those other guys, too. Huff, I mean, they've got some guys. But that was just a bad performance. And I think, you know, you also have to, along with hoping you get your weapons back, I think you have to do some things like move the pocket.
Yep.
I mean, I think you have to start looking at this if you're Todd Downing and saying, okay, like some of the stuff that we bread and butter stuff that we rely on right now, we can't do because of how these guys are performing / because they're hurt, whatever it is. So we got to do some different things. I mean, one thing we didn't see yesterday was Tannehill as a runner be any kind of factor. And I thought there were a couple of times he had a chance to do that and didn't take off, but you've got to, I think, account for this offensive line moving forward if you're Todd Downing until things get better, if they do get better.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, one positive after the loss yesterday was Henry still got his yards and is on track to get 2,000 again. So I guess there are truly positives you can find in any situation, Joe Rexrode.
There you go. He was, the thing is, man, and there's 2 plays in overtime that, boy, One is he's crossing over. He breaks to the second level, and now he's crossing left across the field in overtime, and you could see it unfolding. It was right in front of me. I'm like, right there. I was like, watch out. He is he's about to bust this. And it was I'm trying to remember who got him. I think it was I don't remember who got him. But, their defensive backs did a really good job of going low and finishing tackles on him. But it was so close to being a walk-off, And I just thought he ran great. And then, of course, the pass to Ferkser, for everything that went wrong for the Titans yesterday, Tannehill had Ferkser in the seam on 2nd and 5 from the 26.
Yep.
And the defender was there, but I don't think there was any hand on the ball. There's no pass breakup.
He's got to catch that ball.
Recorded on that. And if he catches it, he probably backs in the end zone. And all this stuff is like, well, they got all these problems and issues, but they're 3-1. And once again, Tannehill gets it done. Once again, the Titans are clutch in a close game. And that comes down to making a play right there. Like, you got to have that ball and catch it if you're Ferkser. That was a great play by Tannehill.
We got more of your thoughts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, including what happened to the Titans defensively in the second half. We'll get to that coming up next. Make sure you support Stars on Saturday, October the 16th by running, walking, or boogieing in the Nashville Striders 21st Annual Shelby Bottoms Boogie 15K and 5K Run Walk at Shelby Bottoms Park. This event is perfect for the avid runner as well as the casual jogger, or you can show your support and participate virtually. For more information, visit starsnashville.org. We'll be right back. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. By the way, we made it an hour into the show. I've not congratulated Michelle Knezovic on the nice effort her Pittsburgh Steelers had yesterday. They kind of, sort of, for a little bit hung in there with the Packers and then didn't.
Let's talk about the Kentucky Wildcats instead. How about that, guys?
I was just going to say, well, who cares about the Steelers? You got the Catter Day of all Catter days.
Listen, Ben Roethlisberger, he just looks old out there. It's fine. Done. I didn't expect us to win, but, that Kentucky football team.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wearing my Kentucky shirt this morning. It's a great day. It's a great day to be alive.
Big Catter Day on Saturday.
I love it.
Joe Rexrode, Ben Roethlisberger, he's done. It's not looking good.
Yeah.
Not looking good.
Honestly, I was a little bit surprised. I thought maybe last year would be it for him. But yeah, they're in a bind there. I mean, what do you do?
Josh Dobbs still hanging around, man.
Yeah. Give him a look, man.
Maybe so.
They're like a 6-11, 7-10 kind of team, which is just, very, very surprising to ever see that happen.
Yeah, it's time. It's time, Ben Roethlisberger.
It is, and I think everybody in Pittsburgh is starting to come to that realization. Right now, taking your thoughts to a 27-24 loss to the New York Jets by the Tennessee Titans yesterday. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Drew texting in, it hit me yesterday. Could we have taken the money we're paying Julio and given that to Corey Davis? A guy that blocked would have been available yesterday and was all in for the Titans. I love Julio, but in the long run, maybe we should have held on to Corey Davis. Corey Davis looked awfully good yesterday, Joe Rexrode. 4 receptions, 111 yards. Could have had a couple more plays as well. There was one play in particular, and I think it was in the third quarter. I think the drive after he made his touchdown catch, where Zach Wilson is kind of running for his life, and he ends up pulling the ball down and getting like a 4-yard gain or whatever. But they showed the replay. And Corey Davis is running down the middle of the field, and there's not a Titan within 15 yards of him. It was a big day for Corey Davis yesterday.
Well, I'm surprised it took an hour to get to the Corey is better than Julio discussion. Look, good for Corey Davis. I would not have paid him either. I will say that if Julio Jones can't get that hamstring healthy and that's, what keeps him out for long periods of time, a year after a hamstring cost him half of last season, well, that's another big John Robinson move that's going to look rough, just like last year's move, just like we're sitting here now with Bud Dupree. We haven't talked about that, but Bud Dupree now, 2 straight games, not out there at all. He comes out in the opening week and basically plays the whole game after having teared his ACL on December 2nd. So he's at the 10-month mark right now. And now the knee is not responding, and it's a big concern. So there's a lot of, the list here, trying to go through this stuff yesterday as I'm writing everything, I don't even have room to write all the different things that are going wrong right now and could be worse. Now they can be better too, but you can see the path to this being a disaster.
JD texting in, the offensive line couldn't block. Our defensive backs were abysmal, and Bowen called a terrible game. Jackrabbit looks like this year's Jonathan Joseph. They got torched by an offense that averaged 6 points a game before yesterday. Shane Bowen has to go. He doesn't appear to be able to get the players ready or command their best performance any week. So, JD, some strong words there on the Titans defense. And, Joe, it was interesting. The first half, outside of one drive, Titans defense played pretty well and looked like they were on their way to just completely shutting down the Jets, Zach Wilson, and that offense. All of a sudden, in the second half, and specifically the fourth quarter, the Jets just come alive offensively, and the Titans run around, couldn't cover anybody in the secondary. You couldn't get home on Zach Wilson, and it was a bad combination chain of events that led to an explosive fourth quarter there for that Jets offense.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, both defenses late, and this happens a lot in football. I mean, the third quarter, the defense were still kind of controlling the game, and it was a terribly boring game. Both offenses, found life in the fourth quarter, but how do you let the Jets offense find life like that? Some of it is, I think that honestly, Zach Wilson is more comfortable being chased and weaving around and then throwing while flying out of bounds, and he is just taking a 5-step drop and throwing a slant. I don't know what kind of quarterback he's going to be. He's got a lot to work on, but he is going to make big plays on broken plays. And they got the Titans a couple times on stuff like that where you kind of do the scramble drill and, okay, take that route upfield. You take your route toward me. Let's make a play as he's running around. So, you can see the talent, the ability to throw on the run, and he made some big-time plays. But I think you're right. One, the pass rush kind of fell off. And I thought early it was good, and then it kind of fell off. Landry was a big factor early that just they didn't really have a lot going on to bother him later in the game. Obviously, they get that pick too, with Fulton. Corey Davis fell in that play, but Fulton had that play absolutely pegged. I don't know how it turns out if Davis doesn't fall. It's those two fighting for the ball. But Fulton was leading him on his route. He knew what he was doing on that play, or so it seemed. He gets the pick, and then again, I know we're talking defense, but you go right back to, you got a chance right there, 6-0 to make it 13-0, and really kind of just put your foot on him. And instead, Tannehill gets sacked, 36-yard field goal for Bullock. So the offense betrayed the defense a lot, but I agree in terms of the secondary not playing well. The Jonathan Joseph thing is way extreme on Jenkins, but he hasn't been very good so far. And, it's fine to put it on Bowen. He's the D coordinator. I think I see more personnel limitations than anything out there. But hey, it's on him to try to figure this out. And I thought that there was a little bit. I thought that defense was coming around. They'd played 6 pretty good quarters, and I guess you could say this made it about 7, maybe 7.5.
Yep.
And then it kind of fell apart again against the Jets.
Devin from Dover texting in, the corner I don't want to hear anything more about being good is Fulton. Absolutely terrible, can't tackle, and got beat like a drum. Look, I don't know if I'm willing to go that far. Fulton had the interception yesterday, and the thing is, if Zach Wilson would have thrown the ball accurately on another play, Fulton would have had 2 because he absolutely jumped a route. And had that ball been anywhere near the receiver that Wilson was throwing the ball to, that would have been 2 for Fulton. But he did have some miscues in coverage later in that game. But look, that's going to happen as a defensive back. You're not going to be perfect every time in coverage. Christian Fulton, to me, Joe, is pretty far down the list in terms of issues this team has at the moment.
Yeah, he's good. I'll find you whatever elite all-time corner you want to, and we can find a big highlight reel of that DB getting burned. I'm not saying Fulton's great, but he's good. He's a good player. He had some rough moments in the second half yesterday too. You're riding with him. You feel good about him, but it's also I'm really curious. And Vrabel was asked about this, but he didn't really say much. But I'm really curious why Fulton moves inside this game.
Yep.
I think the answer is probably as simple as, Chris Jackson was not available, and right now they don't trust Elijah Molden. But you got Brandon Borders out there, and that's the guy who gets beat by Davis on one of those scramble drill plays I'm talking about. Corey Davis turns his route back up, and he beats him. It's not like Corey Davis is a 4-3 guy either. So. Borders out there, they obviously trust him on the outside more than they trust a Molden on the inside. But it's just, it's easy to second-guess stuff like that. But I think it's easy to second-guess just about anything with this team. I would not second-guess Christian Fulton as a good corner. He's still done a lot more good than bad this year.
We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. 1025. Hockey is back in Smashville, and don't miss out on the 6 home games scheduled during the month of October. The opponents include the Kraken, the Carolina Hurricanes, the New York Islanders, the Kings, the Sharks, the Rangers, all on the table for the Predators. So make sure you get on the action and check that out. The best way to guarantee a spot in Smashville for all the best games is by becoming a season ticket citizen, but single game tickets are a flexible option as well. And remember, Bridgestone Arena is requiring all guests show proof of their full COVID vaccination or a negative test within 72 hours of an event. So make sure you download the Clear Health app to make entry into Bridgestone Arena much easier. For more information, go to bridgestonearena.com/clear. And for more information on Predators tickets, go to NashvillePredators.com/tickets. Once again, that's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. Go to theGameNashville.com/deals to check out Nashville's best deals. Current deals include half off of gift cards for Retro Snow, Fat Cat Slims, Central Barbecue, Joyland in East Nashville, and Bad Axe Throwing Nashville. Get your deals now at theGameNashville.com/deals. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Brought to you by Volunteer State Bank, conveniently serving Middle Tennessee with 13 locations. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Our friend Jordan text again on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The Colts got their first win of the season yesterday. Jordan, the resident Colts fan here on Robby and Rexrode. And that's the other part of this that stings, Joe, is you've got the Jets, man. Like, this should be a team that you win, that you absolutely chalk up in the win column. And even with the Colts win yesterday against Miami, you just don't really think about it that much. But now the Colts have made up a game on you with the Jets. That's a really tough pill to swallow yesterday if you're a Titans fan. You beat Indy, and then you turn around the next week and lose to the Jets and squander that lead that you had built in the division. And Joe's talking on mute for the first time. I knew we'd get one today. There we go.
Darn it all. Darn it all. Yeah. As I said when I was muted, yeah. That's what you missed.
Thank you.
That's a big lost opportunity. And look, it's a good win for the Colts. Go down there, and Wentz is still kind of, from what I could tell, still kind of hobbling around, but made enough plays, and now you got a 1-game lead. And the Colts, of course, have had this brutal schedule early, and well, your brutal schedule is coming. Not that it's been easy. I mean, look, the Cardinals, boy, was I impressed with them going into LA and taking it to the Rams. The Seahawks, by the way, going to San Fran and take it to them. That division's incredible. So, you got punked by one of the best teams in the league, I guess.
Yeah, maybe the best team in the league.
Maybe. I don't know. But you beat a good Seattle team on the road. That's a very good win. And you beat the Colts. That's a very good win, too. And this one is just one you can't have. You can't have it with this schedule getting to where it's about to get. But there's still a huge swing coming up. I know we have all week to talk about this game coming up, but this is it is a must win, I would say. Absolutely. It's a can't lose. The Jets game was a can't lose. Rather than a must win, I call them can't loses. Can't lose. Well, they lost.
Yeah.
Can't lose this one either. If you somehow lose to the Jags Sunday, boy, how quickly could this go bad? Pretty quickly. But you win that game and you're 3-2 on that stretch, and I'm sure that means that you've probably figured a few things out. Here's another thing that we haven't talked about, and I really don't know the answer, but were some guys who didn't play yesterday not on the field because it was the Jets? And, because it's sort of the feeling was, got to have whoever it is later. We can get through this week without him and him and him and him. I don't know. I'd be willing to bet, though, that there's probably a name or two of someone who, if this was, a game for the division title against a really good team, probably would have given it a go.
Yeah, see, I'm glad you said that part at the end because that doesn't bother me. I think that happens throughout the year where, if this was a week 17 or I guess, in this case, a week 18 game where the division and a playoff spot's on the line, I think a lot of injuries that would normally keep you out, players are trying to play through and play against. So I agree. I imagine if this was later in the season, maybe some of these guys can go. But if you're just holding them out because it's the Jets, I think this is a pretty good example. If you're a Titans fan, if you're a Titans coach, if you're a Titans player, it's the NFL, man. And teams can sneak up and beat you. We talked about that all week, and we even said it Friday. It kind of feels like everybody is looking right past the Jets and looking ahead to the other side of the Jags for the Titans. And that just goes to show in this league, man, can't do that because the Jets, any given Sunday, they'll sneak up and beat you. And, man, was that something to watch yesterday. I still can't get over how aesthetically displeasing that football game was to watch yesterday. I got to the end of it, and loss aside, because I knew today's show was going to be, quite frankly, pretty easy to do just based on the reaction that Titans game is going to get. But, God, was that a horrible football game to watch yesterday. It was just abysmal.
Yeah, it really was. It was an all-timer. I think at one point, in the third quarter, I tweeted gross. That's what it was. It was nasty. Just a real grinder. Again, the offenses took advantage of the tired defenses in the fourth, so it kind of got interesting. Like you said, you got Henry. It's 10-9 Jets. They come down and they take the lead, and then it's just like Henry 18, Henry with 9, Henry with 22, Henry touchdown. And it's like, whoa, it's totally okay. So now, after all that stuff, just an awful third quarter. The third quarter in particular was some of the worst football I've ever seen.
Just awful.
Boom, you get Pruitt. You got a nice 2-point play, 17-10. That to me is the turning point of the game. That next possession, there's just no excuse against that awful offense, an awful team, for the Titans defense to then come right out and give it back to them. And this is where Christian Fulton, got beat a couple times. I mean, you got the Dane Cruikshank PI when you don't need to hit him. You go make a play on the ball. Easy to say from the press box, but you got to be more aware than that to be a starting safety in the NFL. Then you mentioned the Fulton almost pick. Then you got Zach Wilson fumbling the ball, having the time. And this is where really a very disappointing with the Titans, the pass rush and how it just went away. The Jets were teeing off on Tannehill all day long. The Titans early were all over the Jets. And in the second half, I'm sure it's fatigue, because you're playing the same guys every snap, but no pass rush. He fumbles it, is able to just pick it up and throw it out to Crowder, who beats Fulton, and then Crowder beats Fulton again, and it's a touchdown, and boom, it's 17-all. It was 104 seconds, a minute 44, and you let them tie it up. That to me there's where you again have a chance to just, okay, go away, Jets, you're done, thank you. And instead you just come out and just have a terrible defensive possession.
Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Josh from Ashland City. Josh, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
What's up, man?
Hey, Josh.
I just wanted to say this. Recapping on the game, we could all point fingers and blame a bunch of different things, but I keep referring back to all day Friday. I kept hearing Jared say, it's the NFL, referring to what the GM used to always say. It's the NFL. Every team comes out. When the Titans always have this problem. The teams that they're supposed to dominate, blow out, have fun, doing what they do, they always find a way to lose the game. And as far as Norris Jenkins, now everybody understands why New Orleans didn't want him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was not a good day for Janoris Jenkins yesterday. Appreciate the call, Josh. Look,
he hasn't been very good.
He's not been very good. Now, I also, there have been times where the Titans play against the Lions and they're expected to win, or the Colts the other week when the Colts are banged up and expected to win, and the Titans go out and they win. So this doesn't happen every time. But I will say, you mentioned on Friday maybe some Bengals vibes that you were getting heading into this game. It was a little Cincinnati-esque yesterday in that second half of receivers just running free, the Titans not even approaching the quarterback, and all of a sudden a game that you should be able to just chalk up in the win column, not being able to do so. And as Josh pointed out, that's the NFL.
Well, no doubt. I mean, that's absolutely true. Again, it's the NFL. It's just not like college football where you just know the outcome. It's just a matter of what the score is. But there's also games where, the Bills beat the Texans 40-0. I mean, you do have those games, and that can get out of hand. You have the Ravens going to Denver and beating the absolute fraudulent Broncos 23-7. The Cowboys put it on the Panthers yesterday. I mean, look, I think yesterday, the Titans finished a couple of those early drives with touchdowns, and it's 17-0 instead of 9-0.
Yeah,
this game could have gone that way. And that's what happens sometimes, is especially a team that's so fragile and so used to losing. You have them at some point kind of teetering, and then it's a question of, do you actually make the plays and finish them or not? Do you send it one way or the other? And then the Titans just bumbled around and let them stay in the game. So. I agree it's the NFL, but that's a bad NFL team. They're going to win 3-4 games this year.
Corey texting in, good morning, guys. Just tuning in, and I hope everyone's blood pressure is back to normal. I don't know if it's back to normal yet. I
had a lot of sodium in Manhattan, so mine's probably not great.
We need 24 hours to mourn the loss.
Yeah, I would say so. 102.5 The Game has your chance to win Preds tickets during the month of October. Just post a picture of your radio dial set to 102.5 The Game on social media, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Tag the game and use hashtag TicketDash to be instantly qualified to win. Show us your dash, brought to you by Social Furniture. Shop local, shop social. We'll be right back. Switch gears, talk about a big win for the Vols over the weekend and a dramatic win for Vanderbilt as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank, conveniently serving Middle Tennessee with 13 locations. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. And Joe Rexrode, this song was heard a lot on Saturday. Rocky Top, often being played in Missouri. The Vols hang up 62 against Missouri. Now, I got to say, I said last week this was a must-win game for Josh Heupel. I expected Tennessee to win this game. I thought they should win this game. I did not see 62-24 coming in this one, including Joe Rexrode. 458 yards on the ground for the Vols in this game. They were dominant from start to finish, and they totally destroyed the Missouri Tigers on Saturday. Now, I don't know if this says more about Tennessee or more about Missouri. It probably says a little bit about both. And by the way, Missouri has fired their defensive line coach after that game on Saturday after Tennessee put up 458 on the ground. But, man, what an impressive performance from Josh Heupel and company. They did anything they wanted to do offensively on Saturday, and it didn't matter if it was through the air or on the ground. They totally kicked Missouri's butt on Saturday on the road.
No, they did. And a few things that I take away that I feel good about. One, I mean, Hendon Hooker is your quarterback. Yep. I think that's just how it is. Whatever that might mean with Joe Milton, I don't know. But right now, he's playing winning football. I thought, when the game was not a laugher and it was apparent that Tennessee could just do whatever it wanted, he made some really big-time throws. And his contribution to the run game is a very nice addition. He's the guy. Two, the Vols are going to be bowl eligible. I don't know if they're going to go to a bowl game. I don't know yet about self-sanctioning. That's it's unclear at this point. But if they're going to let this team, if this team is going to be allowed to play in a game, they're going to get to a bowl game. That was the win to me, because I'm sorry, they're going to beat the crap out of South Carolina. Put it down right now. I'll call my shot. They're going to win handily. Okay, they're going to win handily Saturday. They're going to beat Vanderbilt and South Alabama. So that's 6. So that's a big, significant part of this win. And, yeah, I do think that a fair amount of this game is about Missouri as well as Tennessee. I mean, seriously, it looked like they got lined up for plays like 8% of the game. Like at least one player before every play was like out of position or scrambling around. Like, dude, you guys run tempo too. They run tempo. What are you doing? But even when they were lined up, man, did they get mashed. And that's pretty impressive to me. These backs are so good. It's too bad that, Jabari Small got hurt, because both of those guys would have had huge numbers. And look, you're seeing Velus Jones out there. You're seeing Tyon Evans, and they've got weapons. I mean, they've got an offense that, like, I watch Ole Miss too, and I know it's looking ahead and all that stuff, but I feel like we might have a competitive game with a lot of points when Ole Miss and Tennessee face each other.
Look, Tyon Evans, I mean, you said it the other day, he's a really good running back. 15 carries, 156 yards, including the 92-yard scamper that he had to the end zone where he basically was just untouched for 92 yards. It was impressive how not in the picture Missouri was on that play. Look, offensively, that's the headline from the other day, and you put up 62 points in an SEC game. That's the first time since 2016 against Missouri that Tennessee was able to do that in an SEC game. Joe, I was pretty impressed by the defense and that side of the ball. I mean, Bazelak ends up with 322 yards, so it looks like he had a big day throwing the ball. He really didn't. I mean, a lot of those yards came in garbage time. He threw 2 picks on the day. I thought Tennessee defensively, number one, did a really good job of corralling the passing game that Missouri wanted to put together. They didn't let Missouri run the ball hardly at all. I mean, Missouri averaged 2.5 a carry in this game. I thought a really impressive performance from Tim Banks and that crew defensively. And speaking of Banks, that was the best game I've ever seen Jeremy Banks play in my entire life at middle linebacker.
Yes, he was all over the place, man. This is a significantly less talented and at least somewhat better coached defense than last year.
Yeah.
Which is such an indictment of, the defensive mastermind that the whiteboard blasting genius that is Jeremy Pruitt. But I really like what Tim Banks has done with these guys. They have limitations, and we're going to see them. Like, there are weeks ahead. It's not going to be pretty. But they fight and they make plays. They seem to know what they're doing, what they're looking at. They seem to have the opponent scouted well. And they're fun to watch too. They're not as fun to watch as the offense, but it's fun to see a team play with that kind of energy and conviction, even when it's making some mistakes.
And then on the West End, on the other side of town over here, I was in the press conference room after the Predators' big 6-1 preseason win against Tampa Bay on Saturday night, and I'm watching the end of Vanderbilt and UConn, and UConn taking the old, we're going to call 3 consecutive timeouts approach to ice the kicker at the end of the game, and it doesn't work. Vandy gets it done 30-28, a last-second field goal to get a big win against UConn. And Joe Rexrode, I know you were heavily watching that game out in New York. You and George Walker and Gentry Estes in a bar in New York.
Yeah, and my buddy Mike Hudson, who took the nice picture of us at McSorley's, a place that was, by the way, opened in 1854, and I don't think has been changed at all since 1854. Like it's the bar from the movie Gangs of New York. Like I'm not kidding you that there's stuff on the walls from like 1890. Like it's been on the wall since. It's incredible. They have two beers. They have their light beer. They have their dark beer. They bring you two, and that's all. That's it. So they did not have TVs, but we were watching our phone. We actually did find a place also later to watch the second half that actually had it on television. And, man, it was just as glorious as you would hope that Vandy UConn would be.
Yeah, buddy.
On a Saturday night. Like when UConn gets that fourth down, that wacky play, and it's just like, oh, my gosh, are you kidding? And then, the next play, right, is the QB draw. He just goes up the middle, and you're like, oh, my goodness. But, hey, man, Ken Seals, that offense, Chris Pierce, those guys got the job done in the clutch. I mean, you gotta win every game you can win. If you're Vanderbilt, that may be it. And you got to celebrate those victories, because there's rough Saturdays ahead, including this one at Florida.
Yep.
Not going to be pretty. But you got to give him some credit and Ken Seals, that is a big deal for him, too. It hasn't been perfect, and he's made, some mistakes, and it's been up and down, but that's a big deal for him to, in that moment, be poised and make the plays to set up. And then how about the Vandy? What the heck is that little car called?
Oh, yeah. Did you see the video that Simon Gibbs put up on Twitter of the Vandy flag guy?
That's what I'm talking about.
It just goes running across with the flag. It was awesome.
Like he's icing his own kicker. Woohoo! Just driving around.
Touchdown! Yeah.
Like what?
He doesn't get to do it very often, so he figured he would.
It's a big moment.
Yeah, don't do it when you're about to try to kick a game-winning field goal. That was amazing, man.
Oh, man. And then, Alabama pummels Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin has this interview before the game about getting your popcorn ready, and that didn't go well for Ole Miss in that game. Georgia absolutely annihilates Arkansas. So, look, there were a lot of great stories in college football this weekend, and we talked about Kentucky and Florida, but Alabama and Georgia once again showing they seem to be the class of college football at the moment.
They do. And so I guess from the perspective of like last week, we're all, oh, my gosh, it's so wide open. It looks less wide open, but it's still a fun year. And look, the college football nation should be rejoicing right now, along with Ryan Porth, that Cincinnati went in there and took care of their business. Look, I don't think like Cincinnati against an Alabama or a Georgia, I don't like their chances this year. We'll see, okay? I think we'll see. I think we got a real chance to see.
Desmond Ridder.
But I promise you, Notre Dame, one, was going to just win out if they won Saturday, and then two, they're just going to get absolutely destroyed in a terrible play. No one wants that. Go away, Notre Dame. Go away. I hope Porth had an awesome Saturday in Notre Dame Stadium in the shadow of touchdown Jesus, and it was impressive. I mean, Cincinnati, again, Notre Dame's not very good, but Cincinnati to go in there with that pressure as the higher-ranked team, favored in that stadium, and handle it, I was impressed. Desmond Ridder he's a Heisman candidate.
Yeah, big win for the Bearcats on Saturday against Notre Dame. Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Willie from Murfreesboro. Willie, what's going on?
Hey, good morning, guys. Just something very quick I saw on the Tennessee-Missouri game. The Missouri fans late in the game, I saw this sign pop up. You might have saw it on Twitter. We want Vandy. Yeah. So that was pretty funny. But hey, and this goes to Stillman for this afternoon. I just can't wait to hear how he's going to badmouth the Vols since he's a hater. He'll probably say something like, "Well, can you believe Heupel? Can you believe him? He deferred on the coin toss." So, hey, have a great day. Have a great week, guys. See you.
Appreciate you, Willie.
Thanks,
I did see the "We Want Vandy" sign that they put on the whiteboard at the end of the game. Tough day to be a Missouri fan on Saturday.
Yeah, my goodness. Drinkwitz, what's going on, man? Boy. I mean, look, Barry Odom, I understand things weren't going that well, but gosh, they played some D.
Look, I hope Tennessee fans took some time to enjoy that on Saturday. They've been on the other side of a few of those, and I get it. It's Missouri. They're not a very good football team, but anytime you play an SEC football game like that, my advice for Tennessee fans is just to enjoy that a little bit and relish it based on the way the last 12 years have gone.
Totally agree. And enjoy this week when you thump South Carolina. And please forget I said that if you somehow screwed up.
When we come back, it is time for the Rex Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. We do this every Monday morning at 7:45. Joe Rexrode's Rant of the Week coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. And it is that time of the week, time for the Rex Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. Every Monday morning at 7:45, Joe Rexrode's Rant of the Week being led back in by a little wagon wheel by Darius Rucker this week. By the way, Joe, at the preseason game for the Predators on Saturday night, they did a crowd sing-along to Wagon Wheel. So had a lot of people in the building jamming out to this song.
Okay.
Thank you for your thoughts. Okay.
It's a song. It's fine.
So you're not going to sing along, Joe?
I don't know the words, but it's a song.
You hang around Broadway enough, you'll figure out the words, either voluntarily or involuntarily. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Joe Rexrode, your rant of the week is what?
Well, let's go back to the Titans. I'm pleasantly surprised this hasn't come up yet today. So, I mean, really, I'm quite surprised. So I don't need to, scream and anger my neighbors here in this Midtown Manhattan courtyard. I'm calmed down. For the most part, this is sort of one of those out there things, but it does come up a fair amount. So let's just go through this. I saw a lot of this on Twitter after the game. Look, it's inevitable when a team plays poorly, but it's also pretty much a dumb way to look at things. Position coaches in the NFL, okay? Like, inevitably, you'll have a bad one here or there. Someone who, like, shows up late, like the players don't like him. He spits too much chewing tobacco during practice, whatever it may be. Like, from time to time, you have a position coach, it's like, this guy isn't working out. You have to move on. From time to time, you have a really, really impressive one who moves up. And, Arthur Smith is a tight ends coach 3 years ago, and now he's a head coach in the NFL. From time to time, you also have a position coach who basically must be sacrificed. That's pretty much what happened in 2016. The Titans gave up a punt return for a TD in Houston. Not the place you want to do that, to lose the game.
No.
The next day, Mike Mularkey decides to fire his longtime friend and special teams coach Bobby April. Just decided it was time. These things happen sometimes. But here's the thing with yesterday and at other times too. It's been like Craig Aukerman. Like, the name of interest from yesterday is not Keith Carter. He's not the name of interest. You know what he does? He teaches the stuff that he's told to teach from the people above him on the coaching staff. They know like Mike Vrabel knows what every position coach on this team does. He goes to the rooms, he goes to the drills. He knows that they have a plan. Okay, so the position coaches carry out that plan, and they have some ownership. They are, as Vrabel says, the head coach of the position group. But like, no one's going rogue here, okay, and causing Taylor Lewan to suck all of a sudden. All right, like he does his job, and if individuals stink and on a given unit, well, that's on John Robinson, right? If the Titans are screwing this up schematically, they're not handling blitzes, the protections are bad, whatever it is, well, that's on the offensive coordinator, and by extension, it's on Mike Vrabel. So be mad at John Robinson, be mad at Mike Vrabel, be mad at the coordinators. The position coaches are worker bees who are doing what they're supposed to be doing with the players. I don't understand why people, you have this terrible, Keith Carter. Think about the Keith Carter path here. Like 2 years ago, yeah. I mean, you got to fire him. He's the worst offensive line coach of the league. I mean, Jared was all over it. Fire Keith Carter. Then for about a year and a half, is Keith Carter one of the best position coaches in the NFL? Look at this offensive line. And now it's back to Keith Carter sucks. I mean, he's a position coach. They have limitations in their impact on this stuff. It is above them that the problems are apparent, and that's where the energy should be focused.
Nicely done. I like that. There was a lot of Keith Carter buzz. We've gotten a couple of them on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com today.
Oh, okay, I missed those.
Talking about Keith Carter and how he needs to blame for what's going on. Now, to your point,
they know what they're doing.
My response to that is, okay, so to your point, the career path right now for Keith Carter, a couple years ago, everybody wanted to fire him. Then all of a sudden, he was the greatest offensive line coach of all time, and now people want to fire him again. This just goes back to there's only so much coaching can do. Now, to your point about Vrabel and Robinson, I totally agree, and I will say several times I had the thought yesterday, it'd be nice to have a first-round pick on the field or a second-round pick on the field out there helping out when Julio Jones and A.J. Brown are not available. But here we are. Caleb Farley's not playing. Dylan Radunz is not a factor. And I just think back to the Isaiah Wilson pick. So far, you've gotten nothing out of Farley. You've gotten nothing out of Radunz. Darrington Evans is nowhere to be found. Man, there's a lot to point to with John Robinson at the moment if this continues to go bad.
Right, they drafted Isaiah Wilson in the first round, if you didn't mention that. Yeah, I mean, look, it's just Dylan Radunz can't even be active on a game like that yesterday. He's not active.
It's ridiculous.
again, Taylor Lewan, we know. Look, it's nobody's fault that he tore his ACL. Right now, he's not good. Yeah. He's not a good offensive lineman. Now, I still would not bet against him figuring it out. And I thought he was fine last week. He was bad yesterday. He's way below his normal level. Okay, so that's one of those faultless things that's bad luck. You've got some guys, again, Saffold and Jones getting older. I mean, they're just getting older, and they're fading maybe. And, and Quessenberry has been a nice addition. I still think he's probably about what you were getting from Dennis Kelly last year. But, Jack Conklin obviously was better than that. You have to make choices with money. This is just not a very good offensive line right now. Like Keith Carter on a weekly basis, what is he going to do? What is he doing to make them struggle like yesterday? What does he do to make that stop? Now, the person who can help is the offensive coordinator.
Yes.
Okay. So you got to figure things out to get these guys in better positions, whatever it is, move the pocket, quick hitting stuff, whatever. You got to look at the personnel that you're facing, and you got to come up with a plan that makes sense. Yesterday it wasn't good enough. But the position coach, again, I'm not saying they're meaningless. They do a job. They work with these guys, closely on their technique, and they talk about the opponents and all that stuff. But like it just doesn't. I don't understand how people take it to that level. It's higher than that. That's where the problems come.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Chad from Chattanooga texting in. I blame Todd Downing. The defense held their own long enough for the Titans to build a lead, but he couldn't figure out how to beat the blitz. If he needs pointers, I'm pretty sure there's a tutorial on Madden that shows how to throw screens to counter blitzes and pass rush. It shouldn't take until after the first half to go to the screen game, especially with how well it worked just last week with Derrick Henry. I mean, I hear that. I also think you can make an argument they went to the screen game too much yesterday.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't remember that it was. I have to look back. Was it a second half adjustment? I thought they ran that little throwback to McNichols with you're asking Ben Jones come out, and he did the job for the most part. For the most part, he got out and got his guy, but they ran that play a lot, and then the Jets absolutely sniffed it out in overtime. Absolutely sniffed it out, blew it up, loss of 4.
Let's go back to the text line. Got a texter that says, Trey Smith, why are we giving John a pass for not taking Trey Smith? Well, if you want to hammer John Robinson for not taking Trey Smith, hammer every GM in the league because he went in the 6th round. Like, to me, Trey Smith going in the 6th round is laughable. It was laughable at the time, and it's looking a whole lot more laughable as each week goes by. By the way, impressive response from the Chiefs yesterday. Offense looked pretty good.
Yeah, they'll probably be okay. Yeah, I agree that Trey Smith would be a nice guy to have around. But like you said, I mean, that's just amazing that he went that low. But yeah, look, it's. I mean, I think right now, if you had to say coaching or personnel here, I mean, I think it's more an issue of personnel of one, the empty drafts, like you said. Bud Dupree not working out so far. I mean, that's just a huge disappointment. He was the most important player going into the season, to me. The most important player. It's 2 straight weeks now. He can't get on the field. I mean, I think there's just so many moves that have not worked out in such a short period of time in this go-for-it situation with some parts of this team that are so excellent. That's what's disappointing if they can't figure this out, is like you're wasting one, like a guy who's making a push for a Hall of Fame career. And you got another Hall of Famer here. And of course, it's not your fault that he was hurt, but you knew he had a hamstring last year too. I mean, it's all going to get second-guessed if some of these guys can't get on the field pretty quickly and help you win football games.
Join us in partnering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Light the Night. Light the Night brings light to the darkness of cancer through hope, research, and support for patients and their families. Through this inspirational nationwide movement, we raise awareness and funding for groundbreaking research and treatment options to eliminate cancer. Nashville's Light the Night will be virtual and take place on November the 4th. Learn more at lightthenight.org/TN. We'll come back. We'll be joined by our good friend Corey Curtis from News 2 to break down this disastrous Titans loss to the Jets. That's next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Remember, FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing a disastrous loss for the Titans yesterday against the Jets. And to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Corey Curtis from News 2, brought to you by Invigorate Health in Mount Juliet. Look and feel your best with IV therapy, medical weight loss, testosterone, health and wellness, and body shaping treatments. InvigorateHealthTN.com for more info. Corey, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I am delightful, guys. How are you today?
We are delightful as well. Appreciate you take time to join us. So, Corey, obviously, there's a lot to get into after what we saw on the field yesterday with the Jets, but let's start with the offensive line. At this point, how concerned are you that in the pass protection game, this just may be what this group is at this point through 4 games where Tannehill has taken a ton of hits?
Well, that's not good enough. I mean, that can't be accepted. I mean, he's on pace to get sacked over 70 times. He's not going to survive that. We've seen them have troubles in the past and be able to get it together. But until they do, I just don't understand the stubbornness about not keeping a tight end in to help. You know, we saw against Arizona they refused to keep a tight end in, and, you know, Tannehill got murdered. And then the next 2 games, what did we see? We saw Swaim and Pruitt in a lot on pass, and Hudson in a lot on pass protection, and it shored things up, you know, a lot more. And then yesterday, you know, as the sacks piled up, I looked and nope. Not staying in. They kept it back in a few times. But, you know, Pruitt usually pretty strong in pass protection. And, you know, they would not keep those guys in. I watched one time when Huff came in over, he blew right past Quisenberry. And he was lined up over Pruitt, who didn't touch him and went out on the pass pattern. And I was just like, well, at least he was open. You know, it does. I just don't understand. And again, I'm not an offensive coordinator. I'm no genius. But when you see your quarterback going down, don't you need to adapt? Don't you need to? If 5 can't, I know math. Okay, I can do math. If 5 can't get it done, I'm going to use 6, and if 6 can't get it done, I'm going to use 7. All right. But they stayed with their 5 or their 5 in the back all day long, and it didn't work. It didn't work. And Tannehill, you know, had trouble getting rid of the football or finding targets that he trusted. He needed more time. And then I also think that in pass protection, I don't think they helped their offensive line at all with some of their play calling. You know, Henry is banging away at the second half, and I think you can count the number of play action passes on first down on like 2 fingers. And I don't understand that at all. And I'm not someone who questions play calling. I'm not, because those guys know way more football than I ever will. But I do know, I've watched this team for the last few years, and I've seen how they've set themselves up for success, and that's by using number 22 and before him, number 29, to set up big plays in the passing game. And they didn't do that yesterday. I mean, at least not enough. They were very predictable on first down.
Yeah, I mean, I thought early they did. I went through it early in the show. They did have a fair amount of non-just runs to Henry into the line on first down early, but I think there's a lot to question. Yeah, not late, you know, for sure. And I hear you on the protection. It's interesting because, like you said, they went to that more recently. Now they also had some issues at times with the tight ends, but still, it's just another person. The problem, Corey, is like yesterday, again, like you should at times be okay with 5 in a back against 4. You know, like the Jets weren't always blitzing, and they were getting home still way too easily. So when you look at this offensive line, which I would argue was elite in the second half of 19, that playoff run, and before Luan got hurt last year, how concerned are you about just wear and tear and players fading and this being potentially a problem all year?
Well, I think that's a real concern. I mean, because like we all knew Luan coming back from the ACL might not be sharp right out of the gate, and he hasn't been. But, Saffold, who can still really run block, isn't getting any younger. And he's, he was down again this game. It seems like, once every game or two he's down. And that's not calling him out. I mean, he's played a lot of football, and it's a physical game. And Ben Jones went down again this one. And, he's had a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, and he's played a lot of football. And so you're right. I mean, those guys, they're already not 100%, and they're aging. And, that's why when you use a first and a second-round pick in back-to-back years on offensive linemen, you'd like to think that those guys can help you. But one guy's a failed rap star, and the other guy can't even dress for you on game day. And those are huge problems in this team's development. I mean, huge problems. Those guys should be contributing right now, and they're contributing to other things like frustration.
Corey Curtis from News 2 on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So, Corey, what's your best explanation to what happened defensively for the Titans, especially in the fourth quarter, where they took a Jets offense that had averaged 6 points a game before that, and all of a sudden Zach Wilson was running around looking like Andrew Luck back there? What happened to the Titans on defense in the second part of that game?
Well, number one, this is a guy who's been sacked 15 times the first 3 games. They got to him once.
Yep.
So that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. And number two, I think Zach Wilson turned in a Tebow-like performance yesterday, that he wasn't very good in the pocket, right? When he dropped back, had to make a read and a throw, wasn't very good. Throws weren't very accurate. I mean, he had a throw to end the game to Corey Davis, and he missed him by 4 yards, and he was wide open. But when he got out of the pocket and was able to kind of play schoolyard ball, I think he was really in his element and just felt more comfortable. And so not being able to keep him in the pocket, and they've been good at that the last few weeks, having those ends bracket the quarterback. But when he got out, he was much more dangerous. And for some reason, and maybe it's all of our calls for, man pressure and getting up on receivers on the line, but for whatever reason, this group of DBs is having a hard time keeping receivers in front of them. I mean, I don't know if they need to get back coach for the secondary or not, but, it's the whole darned if you do, darned if you don't think. Like I said, I mean, yeah, they're up on receivers now, but now they're getting beat deep and getting beat deep a lot. And, that can't happen. And they're not just open a little bit, they're open a lot of bit. And so that they've got to figure that out.
So do you think that there's any other sort of, I don't know, just big picture issue with this team? It is absolutely the NFL that teams rise up every week and beat a team they shouldn't. Everybody has players. But do you think that there is some sort of Vrabel thing or Titans thing, handling success and all that stuff?
It's a really good question, Joe, because we've seen it for years. And we predicted this game, right? All week long, we talked about it. We talked about how the Titans have gone into games against inferior teams and lost. We see it every year. I mean, we see it every year. Like we saw it against Cincinnati last year. How many times have we seen the Titans play down to the Jaguars? Or, the year Tannehill took over, they went to Carolina, and they were just dreadful. I mean, that day. They were just absolutely terrible. And, that's why Vrabel always preaches play to our standard. And he's right on the money there with that messaging, okay? Because if you play to your standard, you're not playing your opponent. You're playing yourself. And we all remember the great movie Creed with Rocky Balboa in the corner. And he said, you're not fighting him, you're fighting yourself. He's just in the way. Get out of the way. Get him out of the way. And that's where the issue is. But the problem is these guys are human beings. And, be getting them on the same level for 17 games is hard to do. And only the elite teams tend to really do that. I mean, because we can look at teams all over the league and poke holes in games. I mean, the Ravens should have lost at Detroit last week, right? I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah.
But it should have happened. We can pick. I thought the Bucs were going to annihilate the Patriots last night. and they were lucky to get out of there with a win. So along those points, Joe, what you said, it is the NFL, and if you don't play 100%, you're not sharp, and they weren't sharp by any means. This is what happens. The other thing, though, is that injuries, while you can cover them up for a little while and usually get through some of them, eventually do make a difference. A.J. Brown and Julio Jones are stars, right? They're stars. And you play whole games without both of them, it makes a difference. Can those other guys make plays? Yes. Can they make catches? Yes. Can they move the chain? Sometimes, yes. But they aren't spectacular. They don't make the spectacular. And those guys do. Like those 2 Josh Reynolds drops, you think Julio Jones catches those? I think there's probably a better chance that he does. And, those are the plays throughout the game here and there that can make a difference. And you're also missing, a Bud Dupree, Jayon Brown, not 100%. Your first-round pick still can't play. I mean, that hurts. I mean, that guy was supposed to be out there contributing for you, and he's not even healthy enough to practice right now. And so I think the injuries piling up, you can say it's an excuse. It's reality. I mean, when you're missing really good players, there's a reason you pay those guys a lot of money. They put W's on the board. So I think it's a mixture of all those things. When you're not sharp and you don't have your best players on the field, it spells a bad situation.
Corey, last thing for you here, and you brought up Bud Dupree. He played pretty much every snap in the first game against Arizona, and now the last 2 weeks has not been able to play. I mean, I guess what's your concern level with Bud Dupree and his knee, that this is going to be something that bothers him all season long?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think you have to be at this point. And, we get so little information about these things, it's hard to know. The only thing we can judge is IR or not IR.
Yep.
And so we don't know if he re-injured something or if it's just soreness. Because that's kind of what I was led to believe along the lines of what they were doing was recovery was going slowly. I mean, recovery for 2 weeks is long. So that's more concerning. And I'm sure what they're trying to do is, and I'm sure the same with AJ and Julio, is get them in a place where they can play this week and they don't have to worry about the next week. So that they can be strong, because they need those guys out there. They have a ton of money, a ton of capital, and a ton of time invested in those guys helping them win football games. And they need them out there, but I'm sure they want them out there for the duration, not just try to sneak them in for a game and have them be banged up again and out again.
Corey Curtis from News 2 has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Corey, by the way, Matt Nagy, if you need a cure, just play the Detroit Lions.
Big win.
Yeah,
Big win for the Bears.
That's right.
You know what? When I looked up and saw it was 14-0, I was absolutely staggered. I was shocked.
Stop.
Stop it. I was shocked.
Nick Foles will light up the Lions. Come on.
But you know what? One thing we don't talk about with this, the Browns' defense is really good, because that Vikings offense is really good, and they locked them down yesterday.
Yeah.
And I did not expect that at all. So I think the Brownies are for real. I think their defense can. I mean, because Mayfield stunk yesterday, stunk out loud, and they still won because their defense was able to carry the day, which is, I know, kind of a message that kind of resonates with Titan fans right now about what should have been able to happen yesterday.
Well, that's what happens when you have Clowney on your defense. That's just what you can expect.
Just saying.
Mad at the defense, but the offense could have put that game away in the first 15 minutes yesterday, and they didn't do it. So it's a complete team fail, and that's all there is to it.
Absolutely. Corey, we appreciate you, brother.
All right, you guys have a good day.
Absolutely, you as well. Corey Curtis from News 2, brought to you by Invigorate Health in Mount Juliet. Look and feel your best with IV therapy, medical weight loss, testosterone, health and wellness, and body shaping treatments. For more information, visit InvigorateHealthTN.com. We'll come back. We'll react to what Corey had to say there. Take your thoughts on a brutal Titans loss to the Jets yesterday. 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube today and every day. Our video streaming is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Visit volstatebank.com to learn more about their free Kasasa checking account. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe Rexrode live in New York. He got to witness that wonderful football game yesterday in person. What was that atmosphere like, Joe Rexrode, to watch that unfold for 4 quarters plus overtime?
Yeah, well, it was a pretty good crowd. There actually was a pretty good Titans fan presence here, for one thing. And the Jets fans, it was a better crowd than I would have thought. I think they announced like 70,000 in attendance. Yeah, it was probably 60. I guess, something like that. But, like, for the most part, I think they had zero expectations. And then they were kind of just booing them. And, you've got, like, your diehards, they do, like, the JETS, like,
Fireman Ed out there.
Board.
Jersey people are the worst.
Fireman Ed out there, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Well, now, Michelle, this was in Jersey.
I know.
I feel confident there's plenty of New Yorkers who were also here rooting on the Jets.
I just had to take a stab to Jersey.
Came across the river. But by the end, they actually made a little bit of noise a few times with the Titans on offense, and they were very pleasantly surprised to see the Jets win. So they're like, "Whoa, no way! Are you serious?
They won this
Jets
game?
Won?
Wow!
You got to be kidding me!" It was something. But yeah, I was glad to get back to Manhattan afterward.
I would imagine so. Let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Justin from Nashville texting in. Did Joe finally admit Lawan has been bad? It only took 3 weeks, and what's Lawan saying about how things are going? He tucks his tail and regurgitates coach speak, but if he was doing well and the team was fine, he'd be terribly boisterous and obnoxious. Fake tough guy. This coming from Justin in Nashville. Justin, not a big fan of Taylor Lewan. That's what we've learned these last few weeks.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, Justin. Was he bad in the opener? I mean, no, everyone said that, right?
Yes.
I mean, did anyone not say that? Then obviously you don't know what the heck happened in Seattle, and you're like, man, is this going to be long term? I'll continue to say that it not being long term is better for the Titans than it being long term. And I thought he was pretty good against Indy. I mean, he didn't have massive issues against Indy. So you're like, okay, so it's he had the week, he had the scare, he had the terrible first week, starting to come around for him. He was bad yesterday. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. Now, am I convinced that that's it? This is what he is as a player? No. If that's the case, then you're watching the last season Taylor Lewan will play for this team. But I'm not convinced of that. Now, that's going to be one of the big stories. So many stories moving forward that'll help tell the story of this season that honestly just have to do with can player X get healthy and be his best? And Taylor Lewan is one of the top storylines among those players. So we'll see. And that's, by the way, as far as what he said, he didn't say anything yesterday, and that's disappointing to me that the Titans didn't make him available. They made David Questenberry available. They kind of look at it like make someone available from the various position groups. I mean, I don't think they had all the position groups, but they at least have one offensive lineman. Obviously, Saffold's not going to talk if he was evaluated for a concussion. But to me, and I said this after he wasn't available. I mean, Taylor Lewan last week seriously said to media, "Oh, well, you guys, where were you guys when I stunk week 1? Dude, you weren't made available to the media." And then he went on his thing about fans booing him. But it's like, no, you were not made available. We want to talk to you every opportunity. We want to talk to you after every game. And the Titans know that. And I know that he hurt his ankle, but he played. He finished the game. There's zero reason that he should not have been made available to us yesterday. And again, here's a great example, because here's a fan who said, "Oh, Taylor Lewan ducking the press, huh?" Maybe he was. I don't know. But I bet you if he was asked and said, "Taylor, will you go talk to them?" he would have come in. And he's a guy who should speak for this team, good or bad. because he speaks honestly, but I know sometimes people don't like that. And I know that they didn't like the whole complaining about the booing fans thing, totally out of place after a win over the Colts last week.
Well, your offensive line gave up 7 sacks. You should bring the guy that signed an $80 million contract. I don't think it's too much to bring him out and have him face the music after the game. I don't really think that's that big of an ask for the Titans.
No, and this is where if the NFL tries to not have open locker rooms again, this is going to be a common thing. It's going to be just like college football. If anybody, so it's like the Preds too. Sometimes, someone makes a losing play, and that person should 100% be available after the game. If you have an open locker room, everybody's available. That's how the NFL used to be. I hope it goes back to that, because if not, then it's just going to be a lot of hiding and ducking, and it's ridiculous. Again, when you're talking about what you're asking people to do and the extent to which they support you, and the money involved in that, yes, that is a factor in why people should be available to talk about these things after games.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Stephen from Antioch texting in. Holy smokes, the Giants, the Jets, and the Yankees all win on the same day. What were the chances of that? Stephen, a transplant from New York.
Yeah, the Giants and Jets both get overtime wins. God, the Saints lose at home to the Giants. My goodness.
What a day in the NFL yesterday. We'll continue to take your reaction to the Titans on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Make sure you tune into the NFL Game of the Week on 1025 The Game, brought to you by Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. The Game of the Week this Sunday is the Cleveland Browns taking on the LA Chargers. Kickoff is set for 3:05. We'll be right back. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. That was Titans head coach Mike Vrabel yesterday after a 27-24 overtime loss to the New York Jets. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Now with 2 locations in Murfreesboro. Visit their brand new Murfreesboro location at 2019 Memorial Boulevard. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Reacting to a tough loss for the Titans yesterday, and quite frankly, a brutal game to watch. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Ben texting in, this Titans team doesn't belong in the same conversation as the big boys of the AFC. I never bought into the hype they were getting in the post-Julio trade, and clearly the questionable draft picks by Robinson and the losses of Arthur Smith, Corey Davis, and Jonnu Smith are playing a factor. This is coming from Ben on the text line. So Ben not buying that the Titans are in the same conversation as the big boys of the AFC.
Well, I mean, right now they're in the conversation of they just lost to the freaking Jets.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, currently there's no doubt. You know how this league is. You know, they go win in Seattle, and it's like, okay, there's the special team that everybody's talking about. And Julio Jones has a big day, and, you know, Derrick Henry, who has been great every week. But I can't disagree with that at all. Again, they're going to get healthy or get healthier, or I don't see the way out of this really. Now, you know, I certainly do expect like Julio Jones and A.J. Brown to play again this year. They make a little bit of a difference for a team. It's a big part of why we thought this was a contender, that they had both of them, and yesterday they had neither of them. But the offensive line still, just with the players who are out there, should not be nearly this bad. So there's injuries part of that too. Like every single thing you look at, it's like this position group. Oh, then you're like, well, then this guy's hurt. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just a reality. Like you can have a game. There's no excuse for yesterday's game. You have to find a way to win that game. Okay. But there's also like the reality of like, this is an incredibly beat up team for this point of the year. You should not be this beat up at this time of the year. And if your top free agent signing, who to me was the most important individual player on the team, can't get on the field anytime soon,
it's a problem.
At a position where right now you got Sheree Finch out there, you had to play him. You had to go sign Sheree Finch a couple days ago, and he was out there on the field for some snaps yesterday. I mean, that's bad. But you also need players who are healthy and who are supposed to be good players to compensate. So I will agree to some extent with Kenston, you know, like a little bit more from Jeffrey Simmons, Kevin Byard, you know, just the pass rush that looked good early was very non-existent late. And, you know, like Tannehill, we haven't really talked about Tannehill today. I frankly thought Tannehill was good other than a couple of sacks that I think he just has to get rid of the ball. But the guy is, you know, he's throwing to Nick Westbrook-Akina and Chester Rogers and Cam Batson, and he's the most beat-up QB in the league right now.
Yeah, and, you know, Josh Reynolds sees some significant action yesterday too. I mean, he made a couple of nice plays, a couple of nice catches, and 2 in particular, and you heard Corey Curtis call them drops. I don't know that I'm willing to say they were drops. They were catches that maybe Julio Jones makes or A.J. Brown's makes, but they were diving horizontal catches for Josh Reynolds. You know, what's another part of this conversation is if you ever get to the point where you can protect the quarterback, is there a third guy that emerges? I like Chester Rogers. Chester Rogers is not a number 3 wide receiver on a team. He's just not. So is Josh Reynolds that guy? Can he grow into being that guy? I don't know. I mean, it was good to see him on the field yesterday because that was certainly a step in the right direction, but is Josh Reynolds at any point this year going to be a guy that's a legitimate threat down the field for these defenses? I don't know. We're going to find out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marcus Johnson there's still Marcus Johnson to come for this offense, and he's getting closer. Obviously, he didn't get activated for this game, but he could be the answer there too. I did think overall you saw some stuff from Reynolds. So put Reynolds on the field with Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday he's like their top threat. Yeah, I don't know about draft. That would have been a really tough catch on that fade. It was the first possession.
Yeah.
On the fade it would have been a very good catch. I guess you could call that a drop. I'm trying to remember what the second one would have been. There was also, by the way, a moment where Josh Reynolds clutching his left knee, and you're like, oh,
here we go
okay,
again.
there's another serious injury, but he came back. Tommy Hudson was down. That looked bad. He came back. I mean, there were a lot of guys lying on the field who ended up coming back. Yeah, I'm trying to – I don't remember. What was the second – I don't remember what the second drop would have been for Reynolds. But, I mean, I would say Firkser, certainly. You have to call that a drop. And you're talking about a game-winning touchdown if he catches it. The perfect read, the matchup, I figured at some point Firkser would be a red zone factor in this game. I don't think he's moving as well. I mean, I think he's fighting through that knee, and he's not himself. But, man, that ball, the defender was providing some interference in there, but the ball was right in both hands. And then it's just a totally different – it's not a totally different discussion today because you're still talking about just all the bad things and all the injuries, but it looks a lot different at 3-1.
Well, you're 3-1, right? I mean, yes, there would be issues, and we'd be talking a lot about the offensive line today. But at the end of the day, you're 3-1, and despite all the issues that you put on the field, you're sitting in a great spot in your division at 3-1 with Jacksonville coming up next week, an opportunity to go to 4-1 before a Buffalo team that just continues to annihilate everyone comes to town and for a big matchup. So, I mean, that's how big of a loss this Jets loss can be. And you brought up the pass rush. I agree. Like, I thought in the first part of the game they were doing a pretty good job of getting pressure on Zach Wilson, and then that totally faded away at the end of the game. But again, you go back to Harold Landry and his snap count. He played 100% of the snaps against Indy. He played 98% of the snaps yesterday. He had 60 snaps. I mean, at some point, you've got to get a rotation in there that can get him off the field and keep him fresh, and they just don't have that right now with the injuries that they've sustained. And, you know, Harold Landry, again, to begin the game yesterday, I thought was really good, and he ends up leading the team in tackles with 7, has a sack, 3 tackles for loss yesterday. Harold Landry I thought was really good, but being able to sustain that through 4 quarters and an overtime period when you're on the field every snap, that's a tough ask for a guy that plays his position.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, did you notice Joe Tryon last night?
Yes, I did. My
Bucks?
Goodness.
He might have been an okay pick. Where'd they get him? They get him at the bottom of the
first round.
Yeah. Seems like Newsome doing okay in Cleveland
for
that defense. It just held the healthy, able to come right in and play. Yeah.
And your first round pick is sitting on the couch eating Cheetos watching this game. I mean, it's just look, John Robinson's done a really good job. Some of these picks have been ridiculous, and the free agent signings, at some point it's not just this bad stretch of luck anymore. There's got to be, I think, a really hard look at what's going on here.
Well, yeah, and just obviously it's just like with position coaches. Maybe there's like a scout in there who's just terrible, But I mean, again, that's all a collective sharing of information. It comes from the top. I think if there's one obvious theme that needs to be looked at, it's like maybe move away from getting the value pick or signing with an injury.
Yeah.
I mean, like these injuries are coming back. Bud Dupree, maybe he came back too fast. I can't imagine the Titans did anything but listen to the medical people. I can't imagine like Vrabel's like, no. You say he shouldn't play till October. He's going to come right out. I need that guy.
Get him out there.
Vrabel's not doing something like that. But you signed the guy off an ACL. Even with Julio Jones, like the hamstring. I mean, look, I was absolutely for that move, and I think it could still pay off big. But it's another example of a guy hurt, and then the Farley thing is just I don't know. It's a shoulder, and so it's a different injury, but he looked good, big, smooth, all that, but he didn't look like a very polished corner at all, like a guy who can help you in camp when he was healthy, and now he's not healthy. And man, that stuff adds up on you.
Alex from Montreal texting in, entering the Super Bowl window, quote unquote, the drafting and free agency and coaching all deteriorated. J-Rob and Vrabel should be on the hot seat if this team doesn't achieve anything meaningful. This is coming from Alex in Montreal. Thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you, Alex. What is meaningful? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the expectation for this group should be to compete for a Super Bowl. So, if you lose in the divisional round, is that meaningful? I don't know. I would say that's still a pretty good season depending on how things shake out here, but I don't know. What is meaningful?
Well, but there's the whole like competing to wanting to be a contender in the AFC and all that. But we're talking about hot seat. Like, what would it take for them to actually be on Amy Adams Strunk's hot seat?
Oh, it would take completely falling apart this year. Like, Look, we could talk about how bad this loss was yesterday, and it was really bad. I get that. The Titans are probably still going to win this division. I mean, they're probably still going to be the AFC South winners. They're going to host a playoff game, and they're going to go back in the playoffs. So I don't really see a scenario where those two are going to end up in the hot seat legitimately this year, but I understand the frustration from fans. If you get through this year and the Titans are like a 10-7 team and they just squeak by in a bad division and win the division, get in the playoffs and get beat in the first round, you're going to see a lot of frustrated Titans fans this year. And I think deservedly so.
Deservedly so, because then it's also you're trending the wrong way.
Yep.
You're trending the wrong way, and the 2 straight off seasons that right now are darn near empty are already starting to hurt you and are about to hurt you even more.
Do you want to win a pair of tickets to see Daughtry at the Ryman Auditorium on November the 3rd? Well, head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the 1025 The Game YouTube page, and you'll enter for your chance to see Daughtry. Once you subscribe, email us at promotions@cromwellmedia.com. Once again, that's promotions@cromwellmedia.com with your YouTube handle. One winner will be chosen on Monday, October the 11th. We'll continue to take your reaction to the Titans and the loss to the Jets on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, and including Joe Rexrode's 3 best and 3 worst for the Titans against the Jets coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Our video streaming brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Volunteer State Bank, conveniently serving Middle Tennessee with 13 locations. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe Rexrode live in New York, drinking a nice coffee. Coming back to Nashville today. Joe Rexrode, as we do every Monday at this time, your 3 best and 3 worst performances from the Titans. It's been a lot of negativity today here on the show, so let's start with the best. Who were your 3 best for the Titans against the Jets yesterday?
Well, number 1's Derrick Henry.
Yes.
That's a pretty easy one, huh? Yeah, Derrick Henry. I mean, the guy is he's unbelievable. Even in just a complete stinker like that, he goes 33 for 156, and also a couple catches for 20 yards. But the guy, I mean, the Jets did, I thought, a really good job. There were, I'd say, probably about 4 or 5 runs where it's one guy.
Yep.
And he's second level, and it's one guy who goes really low and grabs those legs and holds on for dear life, and that's how he was held to 157 yards on the day. So, I mean, it's not even close. It really should just be him.
I would say that's a good pick for number 1. Your second best thing for the Titans yesterday in this brutal loss to the Jets.
I mean, I'll go Jeremy McNichols. I mean, and Jeremy McNichols dropped a touchdown pass, by the way. But he made plays. I mean, like, even for him, I haven't gone through every single sack. There's so many. But it seemed to me like when he was kept in, probably not enough, he did the job. I think Corey made a good point. Like, you probably have to, again, move the pocket or leave more people in at some point in a game like that. You're kind of in a bind because obviously you don't have receivers that you normally have who are just going to win a lot more convincingly and quickly, than those guys will. But I still would probably take my chances with fewer guys going out to try to create any kind of a pocket, because Tannehill, you give him time, he's gonna make a good decision and throw. I mean, Nichols did have 8 catches for 74 yards.
Yeah.
So good job, McNichols.
Including a couple of big ones on third down. When they picked up that 3rd and 21 early in the game on a screen, I was like, all right, this is going to be that type of day for the Jets, huh? And it was not.
Well, exactly. No, that, like, the whole crowd was like, yeah, here they go, 3rd and 21. You just let Jeremy McNichols go for 27 on a screen. Yeah, so there you go.
Joe Rexrode,
number 3.
Your 3rd best thing from the Titans yesterday.
Yeah, Tannehill. I mean, Tannehill, to me, was pretty good. So what did he end up? He's 30 for 49, 298, and a touchdown. I thought a couple times he probably should have actually used his legs, like he did so much against Indy. There was a play, and they ended up, of course, scoring on the drive. He really did a great job on the drive to lead them back to force overtime. But I believe it was on that drive. He had a lot of green in front of him, and he heaved one to Westbrook-Akina, who he was hoping was going to turn his route up, and he didn't. But he took a couple sacks for sure. I'd say at least a couple of the 7 sacks. You just have to unload the ball. But again, the guy leads them back. Then he leads them back in overtime and puts a ball on Ferkser that should have won the game, in my mind. So that's pretty good. I mean, he is under siege like he hasn't been here. And one thing you got to say for him is, I mean, like, no one can say, well, he's got perfect conditions now, right? I mean, remember going into the year, it's like, boy, with that offensive line and Henry and those receivers, like, he could have a great year.
Yeah. And
people just say, whatever, look at all. Well, right now he's got, like, practice squad guys on the outside and one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL protecting him, and he's still doing pretty good work.
Joe Rexrode, your 3 worst things. There are many things to choose from the Titans yesterday against the Jets. How do you narrow this one down to 3? What are your 3 worst things from the Titans, beginning with number 1, which I think I have an idea of where you may be going with number 1?
Well, you may be surprised. Number 1, I'm going to go with Taylor Lewan.
Okay.
Because Taylor Lewan is, first of all, it's you take the whole week as a whole thing. Taylor Lewan had I think a pretty significant bounce back game against Indy. It looked like a competent left tackle out there. So after the game, he goes off in this tangent about the fans and booing him and all that stuff, which obviously bothered him. You can say whatever you want. Just make him available. But he said what he said, and it became this big thing. And then to perform like that after that, boy, it was just bad. And like Questenberry had a tough day too. But Taylor Lewan is your very highly paid Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. And I just think if that's the play you're going to get from that guy with the investment you have in him, and I understand there's reasons. I mean, it's not his fault he tore his ACL, but right now it's just a big problem. And so I got to start there. If he just was able to be close to Taylor Lewan, I think some of these issues aren't nearly as bad, and they probably still find a way to win the game.
Really bad game from Taylor Lewan yesterday for sure. Number 2 on your worst things from the Titans yesterday against the Jets.
So I'm going coaching in general, which you could make the case that should be number 1. I don't know if this is like a Vrabel, is this a Vrabel thing? Is this an NFL thing? Is this a Titans thing? But we have seen games like this before with Mike Vrabel. The Cincy game certainly comes to mind. Buffalo a few years ago comes to mind. Is it handling success? I asked Vrabel about the week in practice, and he's like, well, he didn't love it, but he made a point. He's like, look, we've had great weeks of practice, and then the game didn't play out that way. We've had bad weeks of practice. The game was good. It's about what you do on Sunday. Bottom line is this coaching staff did not do enough to help the players. It's not just on the injuries. It's not just on the players not executing. This was a bad coaching day. Bad coaching day. Not enough adjusting offensively to your line just being utterly caved in, going too many times to the well on a play that had been working. Defensively, like you can't figure out how to stop giving up big plays to the Jets and their 6 freaking points a game and the 15 sacks they'd given up in 3 games, and you can't do anything in the second half and you let them off the hook. It's just a terrible coaching day. That should have been number 1.
Number 3 for the Titans on the 3 worst things from the Titans yesterday.
In particular, the secondary. I guess I could pick on Jenkins, but I think it's hard to pick on one guy because Jenkins had his moment. But again, Fulton had some tough moments late. I mean, he gave up plays, and it's obviously big for the Jets to have Crowder back. Crowder got him a couple times huge on that tying drive when the Titans could have had control of the game. Then Crookshank, hey, guy's not supposed to be starting, right? Didn't think he was going to make the team. Been hurt, the special teams guy. But the bottom line is you make the play you made. And then I'm just really, again, this kind of goes to coaching. So why is Elijah Molden suddenly just a non-factor? You don't even think about him. Is it like you're trying to make sure none of your top draftees over the last few years ever play?
He was good enough to start week 1, and now he can't see the field when Chris Jackson's not available.
So now you take Christian Fulton out of, I think, his best position on the outside. You move him inside so that Breon Borders can play outside instead of having Elijah Molden on the field. I feel like, and we'll track that moving forward, but I feel like that's a bit of an overreaction. As far as like Molden was not hurt all week. It was not on the injury report. Look, I think he's been very impressive. He's an impressive college player. Did some really good things in the preseason. Talking to him by the end, I think he's going to be a good player. I understand if you think he's not ready, but you're sure that Breon Borders on the outside is better than him in the slot? I mean, there was no mixing up, and of course, we saw Borders give up the long TD to Corey Davis. But the secondary was just bad. Obviously, Fulton has the 1 pick. And I just, not seeing a ton from Byard. I mean, it was a very disappointing day against a team that they should have handled.
And then we also saw yesterday what life without Brett Kern is like with a 12-yard punt from Johnny Townsend. Now, to his credit, he responded with a 63-yarder after that. But life can be tough without Brett Kern, as we've seen the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, so he ends up, he averages 37.6, which isn't great. But he did put one inside the 20, and he did recover I mean, so he had 176 yards in his last 4 punts, which is just fine.
Yeah.
The 12-yarder was you're like, ooh, is this going to be that kind of day? Better be going for it on 4th down all day. But yeah, just another. And now with Bullock, I don't know. He's been pretty good. But if Ficken comes back, do you go back to Ficken? I'm guessing you probably do.
Look, man, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the Titans are going to do at kicker. I don't know if they know what they're going to do at kicker right now.
Fair.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Titans. Got a lot of your thoughts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning, reacting to a 27-24 overtime loss for the Titans against the New York Jets. And, Joe, I feel like for the most part, we've had lots of level-headed discussion, both between the two of us and on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com today. It's been pretty refreshing. But I do love Mondays sometimes after Titans losses. And we got a text that says, do you see a time when Derrick Henry pulls a Barry Sanders and retires at the peak of his career, asking as it seems the Titans organization is wasting Derrick Henry's peak years? Do you think Derrick Henry's going to retire?
Well, I think he's probably going to say, you fire Keith Carter and Craig Ackerman, or I'm out of here.
That's right.
Now that's more the kind of Monday after a loss to the Jets text that I'm looking for, people. Let's go.
To answer your question, no, I don't think you're going to have to worry about Derrick Henry retiring anytime soon. Just a guess. You know, we're talking about how good the Jets did on him yesterday, which I actually think for the most part the Jets did a pretty good job on Henry, and he had 157 yards on the ground. So there's that.
That's decent.
Not bad. Josh from Jackson texting in, the Titans are in big trouble. Kansas City's defense is terrible too, but at least they can outscore you. We lost to a rookie quarterback, which is very alarming. The Titans will finish 9-8. So, look, obviously, we're going to see a lot of reaction to that, and the offensive line is the number one concern for me with this group right now moving forward. I also wonder, how much different does this game look if A.J. Brown and Julio Jones are on the field? Like, how much can you do in the passing game, in the short passing game, even if you're worried about protection with Julio Jones and A.J. Brown on the field? My guess is it looks pretty different.
I don't know how many times the Jets blitz, but I promise you their approach to the game is totally different with those two on the field. You know, the Jets at any point yesterday felt great manning up against any of those receivers. They're fine. You can't play that way against A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. So this could be very different. I mean, if you get them back and you get the offensive line healthy and playing like a professional offensive line, all of a sudden you're very good. But the problem is we just don't know on the health front. And also, I mean, the defense is just I guess the defense was never going to be great, right? We knew that.
No.
It was never going to be very good. It's still to me, that was the failure yesterday that I didn't anticipate, along with the offensive line. Like, I didn't anticipate it being that bad for the offensive line, but the defense failing to that extent against that team is very troubling. But if you want to go sunshine on this today, which I know that's, you got to be real sunshiny to have that instinct.
Yeah, you do.
But, you know, get Dupree back, get a little bit more depth there, be okay on D, and then, you know, the great offense is still on the table. It's just hamstrings problematic, and I don't know what the offensive line.
Yeah.
I don't know what Taylor Lewan is destined to be the rest of this year, but it's got to be 10 times better than what he was yesterday for him to have a chance.
This is the bottom line. If the offensive line, if this is going to be what it is in pass protection, this team has no chance. I mean, they just have no chance to be any good, because as good as I still believe Ryan Tannehill is, and as big of a difference when healthy as I think A.J. Brown and Julio Jones can make, if your offensive line is getting your quarterback killed every game, number one, to Corey Curtis's point earlier, you're going to get Ryan Tannehill absolutely destroyed at some point, and he's not going to be able to play. I mean, that continues to be a big concern of mine moving forward that I didn't anticipate. I mean, you're always worried about injury with your starting quarterback to some degree, but Tannehill largely has been protected pretty nicely since he got here as a member of the Titans. If this doesn't get any better on the offensive line, then, I mean, this team just doesn't have a chance. Now, the question is this just what they are, or are the injuries affecting this group to a degree where at some point, hopefully when they get healthier, they look completely different than they do right now? You brought up Roger Saffold. He's obviously fighting through the shoulder when he's out there. Ben Jones goes down every game. Ben Jones is down on the field almost every game to the point where you wonder, all right, is he going to be able to come back in there? And look, I think Ben Jones has struggled some this year, but we saw how important it is to have Ben Jones in the game when Aaron Brewer sends a snap 25 yards over Ryan Tannehill's head. So the question to me with the offensive line boils down to, is this just what they are in pass protection, and this is what these players have devolved into, or is this just injuries, and hopefully they're able to get healthier and better as the season goes on? Because if they don't, I mean, this Titans team is screwed.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think that Nate Davis, I've seen enough of Nate Davis to think he's going to keep improving and be good this year. I think you saw yesterday the limitations with Quessenberry. I think he's still fine over there, but you can see, like, a really good pass rusher, you have to help him. You have to. But again, that should be okay. There's plenty of teams who have to help one of their offensive tackles, but some have to help both. And that's where you get into the problem. They have to get to the point where they don't have to help Taylor Lewan. If they don't get to that point, I think there's a trickle-down effect on the rest of the line where it's not going to be very good. So I put him way above everybody else in terms of, like, storyline moving forward, what has to happen. But to your point there on Saffold and Jones, I mean, Jones is really getting up there. Saffold's getting up there too. They're both banged up a lot. And, I mean, Jones last year, by the end, it was just like, yeah, we'll see you Sunday, man. See if you can, like, rally and and get out there. It's just not a great situation, and they haven't really drafted for that. Well, I guess maybe they did, because Dylan Radins apparently is a guard. But I guess so. Maybe that was the plan all along, is that they actually drafted him to be an interior offensive lineman. But again, this dude can't be active on a game day. So that group, I do think there is a lot of potential. I mean, look, there's a lot of potential to be way better than yesterday, right? There's a lot of growth potential for the offensive line. There's a lot of concern too, though. Some of it health, and just some of it, like with Lewan, I don't know, man. It's I'm sure it's not easy coming off an ACL and all the stuff he's gone through. I mean, you have to allow for that and understand it. But sometimes injuries like that change players and change careers. And yesterday he looked nothing like I've ever seen Taylor Lewan. That game in week 1, not even close. He's never been anything close to that bad.
Dennis texting in, I couldn't tell if some of those sacks were Tannehill not making quick enough decisions or the receivers not getting any separation. Seems if they were bringing extra on blitzes, at least one guy had to be open. And that would be interesting to go back, and Vrabel kind of alluded to that yesterday, as you pointed out, like having to go back and determine on some of those plays where it looks like Tannehill's holding on to the ball too long, is anybody open on the play with Nick Westbrook-Akina and Josh Reynolds and Chester Rogers out there running routes?
The short answer is sure. I mean, of course, on some plays, I mean, like you said earlier, Zach Wilson missed Corey Davis alone in the middle of the field one time. That's what pressure does for you. But for the most part, and I think Vrabel's answer kind of said it without saying it, for the most part, Jets are, whenever they needed to, press man those receivers, and you're not worried about it. And again, you can't even think about doing that with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones in the game. It's absolutely critical that they get those guys back. And even with the offensive line, like, I agree with you, like, the play has to be better on its own. But those guys also will help an offensive line. I mean, the entire picture of an offense changes when you are, as a defense, you can't be that aggressive.
Fred from Ashland City texting in, the increased cap check comes just in time next year for us to get a new offensive line. They can help wheel Tannehill out in his wheelchair because he's going to be broken by then at this rate. So Fred's ready for a new offensive line. Be great if some of these draft picks on the offensive line started to work out and actually were active on game day. That'd be step one. Or on the team.
That's the thing. They haven't worked out, but the choices tell you how John Robinson looks at it, right? Like, the choices tell you he realizes this line is getting older and you've got to start planning for the future. That makes sense. It adds up with what we're seeing on the play, and it adds up with the choices. The problem is the choices have been bad.
We'll continue the conversation on the Titans. Got more of your thoughts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. How concerned are you about the Titans' offensive line that maybe this is just what they are in pass protection? We'll get to more of that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. That was Titans head coach Mike Vrabel yesterday after a disastrous loss for the Titans to the Jets, 27-24 in overtime. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025. The Game brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Visit volstatebank.com to learn more about their free Kasasa checking account. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Joe, I thought a pretty poorly coached game from the Titans yesterday, really from start to finish. I mean, the offensive line is one thing, and when you don't have protection, I realize it's difficult to really do anything offensively, but your job as an offensive coordinator is to try to put yourself in the best position to succeed. I didn't think Todd Downing did a very good job of that yesterday. And then defensively, I mean, these busts in coverage, and I know when you can't get to the quarterback, you can't just sit there and cover forever, and Zach Wilson did a good job escaping the pocket, getting outside of the pocket. But some of these busts and coverages that we've seen through the first 4 weeks, to me, are pretty concerning about this defense as they move forward here. Not a good day in the secondary yesterday.
No, it was a terrible coaching day. You got to adjust better than that offensively. You got to see what is happening to your quarterback. And defensively, you got to find a way to manufacture pressure. You got to find you can't keep giving up big plays. And look, in some instances, it's like, okay, you're in this position, you're the player, please execute. Like with Taylor Lewan, I mean, if I'm coaching this team, I have to say, okay, well, I have to be able to trust him to handle one rusher. I have to be able to trust him. There's some guys, like you have to trust them in certain situations. You have to devote resources. You can't devote them everywhere. So you got to trust key guys to do things for you. But ultimately, there was not enough adjusting, I think, on both sides of the ball. And it's just a big fail all the way around. Now, real fast, Robby.
Yep.
Because, I didn't really get too fired up with the Rex rant, but right now I've got Jared texting me, all caps, stop making excuses, period, after every word. So I ask you, is that what this show's been? We've been sitting there making excuses for the Titans?
I don't know. I'm so tired of having this conversation every show. Let's just move on. Let's move on. I'm tired of dealing with this. Let's go to our text line.
I'm getting hate texted, man. I'm getting hate texted.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Charlie from East Nashville texting in. If anyone needs to be on the hot seat, it would be the coordinators with their horrific play calling despite the bad offensive line. So, Charlie, ready to put the coordinators on the hot seat?
Well, yeah, look, it's totally fine to blame the coordinators and Vrabel. Vrabel picked the coordinators, blame the coordinators. My point on, again, with the offensive line being bad, like the offensive line coach teaches the stuff he's told to teach. He works on technique. Like if last week if last week Keith Carter was like, guys, let's just do all run blocking this week. We're not going to do any pass blocking. Let's just focus on run. We don't need to worry about, if the offensive line coach goes rogue or some position coach goes rogue, then fine. They'll get fired eventually. But yeah, it's on the coordinators. It's on the coordinators. It's on the head coach. Not just to have a plan, and not just for Vrabel, it's also the overall approach of the team, right? It just looked like we talked all last week. Gosh, feels like the Cincinnati game. Feels like the Bengals game. I don't know. They've learned from that, right? They're handling success now. Well, they didn't come with what they needed to come with, regardless of the injuries. They didn't have the overall focus and sharpness of execution. But I think the coordinators, more specifically, didn't adjust well enough, didn't compensate enough for their personnel shortcomings. It was just a terrible day.
Dennis texting in, I kind of felt AJ and Julio were almost icing on the offensive cake. Yesterday showed me they're more of the actual cake than I thought, especially when your offensive line can't block anyone. Be good to have them back on the field at some point. Ben texting in, the Vikings have two good tight ends, but obviously are a horrible team. Wonder if we could trade for one of them. So Ben already starting the trades.
Trade time.
Could be.
Yeah, what are you gonna trade? I do think the Titans are deficient at times at tight end, and it's amazing how important Michael Pruitt has become. Again, the guy that they did all they could do to not sign Michael Pruitt, and now he's like a key guy for them.
Yeah, exactly. And, to your point about Ferkser, I don't know if he's still kind of dealing with the effects of the knee injury, but not much separation from Ferkser. And then that ball at the end, you've got to catch the ball there. I mean, you're talking about what could have been a walk-in touchdown if you just make that catch there on that play. With everything that went wrong yesterday for the Titans, and good Lord, were there a lot of things that went wrong yesterday for the Titans, they still had an opportunity right there to win the game, and just repeatedly shooting yourself in the foot and losing a game to the Jets. And we brought this up earlier. the Colts get a win yesterday against Miami. And if you beat the Jets, are you really that concerned about it? I mean, the Colts still didn't look all that great yesterday. They played a Miami team that could not do anything moving the ball, and Miami, they may be done without Tua based on what we've seen the last couple of weeks. But if you win a game you absolutely should win, despite all the injuries against the Jets, then nobody really cares about the Colts beating the Dolphins. But here you are after a big win against the Colts, and now you've let a game slip away where it's 2-2. The Colts are now 1-3, and that cushion that you had built up is now gone in 1 week with you squandering a game to the Jets. It's got to be frustrating if you're in that building, and certainly frustrating if you're a Titans fan.
Like, I don't know where things go for the Colts. Miami's bad. Brissett at QB. It was a must-win. They got the win. I don't know where things are going. I don't think they're going to be very good unless Wentz can get back to being able to run. Now, he's still out there. He's playing, so presumably he's getting healthier. I mean, the Titans could be behind the Colts in the standings by the time they go there on Halloween.
Yeah.
Like, that's absolutely on the table. The Colts schedule is getting lighter. The Titans schedule is getting incredibly tough. And obviously, I mean, you cannot mess around and lose this next game. But if you're the Jaguars right now, you got to feel like, hey, here's a big opportunity. Here we go. Almost won at Cincinnati, and then look at this team. They can't protect their quarterback. They can't cover anybody. Chance to have a little victory celebration with Urban and Trevor.
Maybe so. Dano texting in. Didn't see every snap, but when Ryan was in the pocket and had no time to even make reads, he's an athletic quarterback and is stronger on rollout / bootleg option plays. Why don't coaches adjust and just let him make plays to his strengths when your offensive line couldn't protect him? Not every play, but at least change the pace when you could see online the offensive line was getting its butts kicked. Don't they watch tape and see what has worked for them in the past? This coming from Dano.
Well, that and as Corey Curtis brought up earlier, leaving more people in, 1, moving the pocket, 2. Obviously, they had some pep. It's just like every week. You have a game plan. You have plays that you rep all week. You're going to use those plays multiple times in a game. And they use that screen to McNichols how many times? 6 times?
Yes.
6 or 7 times, I bet, in the game. And it was actually effective for the most part until, the most important time when the Jets saw it coming and destroyed it. But you can't tell me that even if it wasn't in the game plan that you can't put in some boots, some moving pockets, whatever, to get him out of there, because they were collapsing it so quickly he couldn't get out of there. Now he has to also get rid of it a couple times for sure. Like, he held it, trying to make a play, waiting. You can't take the loss. And the way they're protecting, you also have to, like, the clock has to speed up. The clock in your head has to speed up. But I think you have to look at Downey and say, like, why is there not more adjustment to that?
Don't miss Nashville's best NFL pregame show live from Corner Pub in Bellevue this Sunday. The NFL pregame show features Jared Stillman, Mark Howard, and former Titans wide receiver Chris Sanders. Join them from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. live at Corner Pub in Bellevue at 8058 Tennessee Highway 100 prior to the Titans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The NFL pregame show is brought to you by TriStar Moving, Parman Tractor and Equipment, FreedomTireGuys.com, FanDuel, E2 Roofing, Hillside Medical, Social Furniture, and Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. We'll come back. We'll take more of your thoughts on the Titans on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, and including what happened to the Titans defensively in the second half of that game to allow that Jets offense to get it done and move the ball down the field. All that and more coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Hiring new employees is a real struggle right now and for everyone, so we want to help. Join us for a free recruitment seminar tomorrow at Hotel Preston in Nashville or this Wednesday at the Drury Plaza Hotel in Franklin. Both come with free breakfast, some great door prizes, and tips to help you recruit and retain employees. Go to theGameNashville.com/register for more info and to sign up. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, on Twitch, and on YouTube today and every day. Our video streaming is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Remember, FDIC, equal housing lender. So, Joe, for the first half of that game, the defense was playing pretty well. And the offense, while struggling in the red zone, you were up. I mean, you had 3 field goals, but you thought to yourself, all right, with this Jets offense against most teams not converting in the red zone, it may come back to get you. Against this Jets offense, which has been abysmal so far this year, you might be okay if you're the Titans defense. And then all of a sudden the second half comes around, and Zach Wilson escapes the pocket. Corey Davis goes running downfield, and the Jets are hitting on big play after big play in the passing game. What happened defensively for this Titans team, and why were they unable to corral the Jets in the second half, specifically in the fourth quarter when the Jets put up 14 on them in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could say this game, you could definitely say this game was lost with those early possessions. When the Jets, the Titans gave them life. That's the thing.
Yep.
You know, the Titans gave them life. The Jets were absolutely complicit in, you know what, we come out, lose 28-6, get booed out of our home field, and move on to next week. And it was total domination. It was 105-15 in total yards as of the 3 possessions for both teams. So you're going into the Jets. Each team had 3 possessions. It's 105-15. Okay. And the possession time was more than 14 minutes for the Titans and 5 for the Jets, and the score was 9-0.
Yep.
So you can look at that and say and you knew it would be trouble. Well, you didn't know it would be trouble, but you, like in a lot of NFL games, that's going to kill you. Like later, you're going to pay for that. And they did, but still, you have the drive, the absolute just Derrick Henry takeover drive, where it's like, you know, I mean, you watch a drive like that and you're like, gee, give him the ball more. He still ends up with 33 carries. But I mean, the guy, you go down 10-9, you know, with the Jets coming back on you, and now you're going, you got a little tight end screen to Pruitt, gives you a nice gain. Then it's Henry for 18 going right. It's Henry for 9 going right. McNichols, you know, gets a nice gainer. Henry, pitch left, 22 yards to the 1, punches it in the next play. Pruitt finishes. It's the whole Pruitt-Henry drive. It's 17-10. You know, I mean, that's where you should have been just reasserted yourself and you're fine. And you close it out. I mean, the Jets tried to give you more turnovers too. They fumbled the ensuing kickoff. They get it back. But that PI on Dane Cruikshank was a killer. And then, again, Zach Wilson fumbling the ball, and your pass rush is so bad or non-existent at this point, he's able to just reach down, pick it up, hit Crowder on a deep out, working against Fulton for 29 yards, and he hits him on the next play, or 2 plays later, beats Fulton again, and boom. It's 77 yards, 4 plays, 1:40, and it's tied. Those are the 2 key sequences to me. That where the Titans could have, you know, I think just have one good defensive series, and you'd have that instead. And then also early on with the offense. But I mean, shoot, by the end of the game, the Titans were lucky to not just give up the touchdown to the Jets to lose at the beginning of overtime. Like the Jets were just handling that defense.
Yeah, and you know, we've gotten a lot of text today about Jackrabbit Jenkins, and he was not very good yesterday. You know what would be great to go along with Jackrabbit Jenkins? Your first-round pick being able to come in and give you some snaps. I mean, that would be wonderful. And, you know, we've talked a lot about Caleb Farley today here on the show not being available and that pick. You know, I look at Gregory Newsome right now. You know, he's played 97% of the snaps in week 1, 98% in week 2 and 82% in week 3. Now, he didn't get on the field yesterday for the Browns, but this is just one of those things where the availability or lack thereof is a huge problem. And it goes beyond just the offensive line. I mean, when you're taking a guy in the first round that's not able to get on the field for you, that continues to hurt your team. We've talked about, at some point, not hitting in the draft and not hitting in free agency is going to hurt this Titans team down the road. And I think we're seeing it right now. When you run into some injury problems and you don't have that depth to come in behind those guys, you get put in a really bad spot. And that's where the Titans are right now, is with the injuries they sustained, they just don't have good depth. And defensively, you're in a spot right now where the one guy that maybe you felt okay about from this past draft heading into the season, which was a starter, is also not on the field in Elijah Molden. It's just they're in a tough spot right now in the secondary if they can't generate any pass rush and they can't get guys back on the field, because there's just not much depth right there. And then you've got Breon Borders trying to cover Corey Davis going down the field, and that did not go very well.
Right. So it's like the disconnect. So not only Caleb Farley, which was a gamble, was a risk with the back, with the guy who hadn't played much corner at all, with the guy who hadn't played in 2 years, but you feel good about your third-round pick, and he has a good preseason, and he comes out in the opener. He has some rough moments in the first few games, but now he's just ruled out. The coaches have decided, have a seat, Elijah. We're going with Breon Borders on the outside. We're going to move Christian Fulton to the inside. It's great to have that versatility for Christian Fulton, and I still think overall this has been a very encouraging year for him. He's the shining star of 2 draft classes, because he's had like a couple good games early this season. He's the one. But again, you got a third-round pick. You can't all of a sudden he's just not even considered to go in the game. So, the thing with the secondary that to me, yes, Jenkins got beat. Now, Jenkins got beat on a big play in overtime with a communication issue, okay? Like he was late to get over there, and he was looking for the call on the field. That's how it looked to me. But even with these losses downfield for the secondary, I think that's the affecting of Zach Wilson that completely stopped for the Titans was surprising. Because early on, I was like, okay, that looks about what I thought. Even though Bud Dupree and they got Sheree Finch, but Landry and Autry, those guys, they're pushing the pocket. They're going to be trouble for him all day. Now, a few times Zach Wilson did make good plays. He had pressure in his face and he eluded it, and he's very good at that. He's very elusive, tough to bring down, tough to corral. Then he loves running around and throwing the ball. So you got to give him some credit on some of those plays. But overall, I just thought by the end there wasn't much. There wasn't much affecting of him. And kind of going to last year, if anybody wants to put all of last year and their third down awfulness on the secondary, so much of it is not being able to affect the quarterback.
So now here we are. You're 2-2 after 4 games. You've had 2 losses that have just been really ugly, and really ugly on the line of scrimmage offensively specifically. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the injuries today and how banged up this Titans team is, which could continue to affect them as they move forward here. What's your concern level 1 to 10 right now if you're a Titans fan, based on what we just saw yesterday against the Jets and the 4-game sample size as a whole of what we've seen?
So when you say concern level of what? Concern that what will happen?
Concern that this team is 8-9, 9-8, not a threat in the AFC.
Well, I'd say that's the thing is it's hard to answer that. You have to be able to compartmentalize 2 things, which some people who won't be named can't do. The answer to that question to me is so much about health, right? So, but that's also goes to concern level. I'd say it's pretty high, but is it possible that those 2 receivers, you take a week and one of them takes 2 weeks and then they're back for the rest of the year? It's possible.
Yep.
If they do, does that fix everything? No, because you got to also compartmentalize what's just not performing well and what's alarming about people who aren't hurt on this team. That's pretty high too. I still right now would predict, just guessing, with injury and performance and knowing how this league goes, I would still project this team to win the AFC South. I mean, a week ago, we were talking about how easily might they win the AFC South. I still think they're the favorite to win the AFC South. But you said it earlier in the show, it could also be like a not all that impressive run to win the AFC South, which is a bad division. The Colts end up not being that good. And, okay, great. So you're just going in to be fodder for someone in the playoffs. I mean, if that is a concern, like if that's a bad scenario, then I'd say the concern level's high, like an 8, like 7. Now, if like concern level that like they're going to miss the playoffs or like total disaster, I'd put that more like a 3 or 4.
I know this Jacksonville game is going to be interesting this week. We'll have a lot of time to talk about it and break it down, but going to be interesting to see how this team responds after what I said. You were there, Joe. That was one of the ugliest football games I've ever watched in my life. I mean, it was just brutal from start to finish to watch in that game yesterday. And it got exciting with overtime coming down the stretch, but God, that was a horrible football game yesterday. That's 4 hours of my life I'll never get back.
Yeah, and so many stoppages that like weren't even like just for meaningless crap. It was very bad. Now the third quarter, you got Titans punt and the Jets punt, and there's another sack for the Titans, and they punt. Tommy Hudson's hurt, Josh Reynolds is hurt, and then the Jets finally, they give you 3 points in the third because of a Zach Wilson play where he runs around and he gets Cole for 54 yards. And that was a Jenkins, by the way, getting torched to get to the 14th. Like that was the first like good play of the entire second half, which was late in the third quarter. So It was that should go in the Smithsonian. It was so bad.
It surely was. When we come back, we will switch gears. A big weekend for the Vols over the weekend, a win for Vandy in the last seconds of the game as well, and an eventful weekend of college football. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Now with 2 locations in Murfreesboro. Visit their brand new Murfreesboro location at 2019 Memorial Boulevard. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. And the Vols, they were rolling on Saturday, Joe Rexrode. 62-24 winners against Missouri, including over 450 yards on the ground. Joe, they did whatever they wanted to do offensively against Missouri in that game. And I said it earlier, I don't know if that says more about Tennessee or more about Missouri. And Missouri has since fired their defensive line coach after that game on Saturday against the Vols. But a really impressive win, really impressive performance by Josh Heupel and that Volunteers offense on Saturday. And I hope Tennessee fans enjoyed that one because they've been on the wrong end of a few of those over the last 12 years. It's Missouri. I get it. Missouri's not good, but I hope Tennessee fans enjoyed that one over the weekend. Mute number 2 for Rexrode.
Mute number 2. Gosh darn it. Yeah, you gotta enjoy that. It was boy, what an eye-opening beatdown, probably for both sides.
Yeah,
which is Missouri. Speaking of position, I just said earlier in the show, like, you can't blame the position coaches. And, the D-line coach got fired in Missouri. Of course, Jeremy Pruitt was firing position coaches left and right. So sometimes you can blame them.
Yeah.
Usually, like in the NFL, if you got a staff that's been together a few years, you have a pretty good idea of what everybody's doing on a daily basis. But Missouri is bad on D. Missouri, it's like Missouri didn't know Tennessee was running tempo, even though Missouri also runs the same offense, basically. But they couldn't get lined up. And then when they did, they got blocked, and they got just pounded. And I think it was a glimpse of Tennessee's skill and that speed, coming together. I had this thought early in the game. I'm like, it's funny. Like, everyone does this now. Everyone copies it. Everyone works hard to stop it. And sometimes with like schematic, like innovations, that takes away the effectiveness. And I think it largely has. I mean, I think back 10 years or whatever, around that probably. 10 years ago, I remember Indiana brought that into the Big Ten, and they were good at it. And at times it's like, holy cow, how do you deal with this, right? Well, everybody can deal with it now. But if you have a good plan, good play calling, and you execute it as well as the Vols do, it's still hell to deal with when they get it going. It's fun to watch. So, like, it just shows you that this scheme is here to stay as long as you know how to actually implement it. And, of course, if you have the right players to run it. And to that point, to me, Hendon Hooker is – I don't think there's any quarterback discussion.
No.
Until there's another injury or something like that. I think Hendon Hooker has demonstrated that he's got to be the guy behind, under center. That first touchdown pass to Peyton, that was not a wide open necessarily deep shot. I mean, it was somewhat covered, and it was a perfect throw. So they got a quarterback. They got some momentum. I like how they're flying around and doing what they can do on defense. I think there's going to be some real interesting Saturdays coming up here for this team.
Yep, I think it's going to be interesting as well. And we talked about it last week. Number one, what was it ever going to look like with this Tennessee team if they got Velus Jones Jr. involved offensively to an intentional degree? 7 catches, 79 yards, and a touchdown, including a 35-yarder on Saturday for Velus Jones Jr. But I'm looking around, and halfway through the game, I'm thinking to myself, all right, where's Jalen Hyatt? Like, they're going to give Jalen Hyatt the ball at any point, and he was dressed, he was out there, but not a whole lot of playing time for Jalen Hyatt. And it's hard to argue all that much. I mean, you got Velus Jones and Tillman and Javonte Payton making plays left and right. I just continue to be surprised that Jalen Hyatt not a bigger factor in this offense.
Well, he can't be totally healthy.
He
right?
can't be.
That's my guess. Yeah, that's my. Although look, hey, you gotta earn those. Perhaps like Tillman has been. Like, I keep waiting for Tillman to sort of, okay, let's get in some younger, faster guys there. But Tillman is playing well.
Yeah.
Like, he's and you can tell he and Hooker have a good thing. Milton and Tillman had a connection when, they could actually complete the pass. So, but yeah, that's a loaded group, man. That is a loaded group. And I was impressed, with the offensive line without Cooper Mays, and who knows when he'll be back.
Yep.
But I think you can sit him against South Carolina and feel fine about handling that game too. Which is, would we have said that a week ago? Am I overreacting? Maybe. But I think they're going to beat South Carolina soundly.
Yeah.
With the way that offense is functioning.
Tyon Evans, 15 carries, 156 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, including a 92-yarder. That guy's pretty fun to watch at the running back position, both with what he can do on the ground and in the receiving game as well. Now, he didn't do much in the receiving game in this game specifically, but I think they've found something pretty special in Tyon Evans. He's a heck of a back to watch out there in Josh Heupel's offense.
Yeah, he is. And Small looked great early.
Yep.
But, before he got hurt. I don't think there's like some huge gap, but Tyon Evans has another gear to him, that Small doesn't have. They've both been a little bit banged up, which is a little bit concerning. But I mean, in this game, you're like looking on the bench for walk-ons who can come on and score a touchdown for you. I mean, it was a stat patter all the way.
Disappointing game between Alabama and Ole Miss. I thought there may be a chance for Ole Miss to hang up some points on this Alabama defense and for Matt Corral to have maybe that Heisman-esque moment that puts him in the conversation. But Alabama really in control of that game from start to finish. I think some reckless coaching from Lane Kiffin to begin that game in terms of maybe being a little too aggressive on 4th down. And at the end of the day, Ole Miss not much of a challenger to Alabama in that game.
Yeah, get your popcorn. Get your popcorn burned and spilled all over your lap. That was it was disappointing because I wanted to see a good game. I thought we'd see some kind of game, maybe from Arkansas. But it was kind of the day of Georgia and Alabama saying, okay, it's us. It's us too.
Yeah.
I still think it's been a better than expected college football season, and everyone should give a big thanks to Cincinnati, to Luke Fickell and Cincinnati for taking Notre Dame away, hopefully, from any hope that they will play in the playoff, because it would be ugly if they did.
Doesn't it kind of feel like we could see a two-parter between Alabama and Georgia this year?
Yep. I think that's very, very possible. And, that gets into if that does happen, and one of them loses, let's say one of them wins handily, there's no way like the other one's the 4, right? Like you have to.
I wouldn't think so.
The other one would have to be like the 3 at worst so that you can set up a title game. But yeah, I think it's possible. I don't even know right now.
Well, and the other thing is Oregon lost. Oregon lost over the weekend. So you've got Cincinnati, who maybe they find a way to end up in the college football playoff. Oregon loses. Oklahoma wins again, but still doesn't look very good. I have no clue who the third and fourth best teams are in America right now. Iowa, I guess. Yeah,
they got a chance, but Cincinnati and Oklahoma are probably your most likely teams at this point to be the other two. The Pac-12 actually had a chance for relevance. And then the Stanford team, which, by the way, was in just a dogfight with Vanderbilt for a good half of football. Absolutely, they were winning the line of scrimmage. But, I mean, that was a game. They go out and frickin' beat Oregon. The Pac-12 is incredible how they stymie themselves every year.
It's amazing.
Come on, get some refs who will cheat on behalf of your program you want to get in the playoff. The SEC does it. Come on, man.
That's right. Joe Rexrode, safe flight back from New York to Nashville. We'll see you back here in the morning.
So 4 hours. Did we do well enough in making excuses for the Titans? That was the primary goal.
That's what we tried to do today. Yes, it was good stuff.
Good job, everybody.
Thanks. Appreciate
Safe flight, Joe.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, see you guys tomorrow.
That does it for us today. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Darren Donick and Chase up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.